Hello, and we are live. Welcome to the Katie Halper Show. So excited to be here on this fine Wednesday night, which is a different night from what we usually do. And I'm going to pretend right here in real time, I'm going to pretend it has to do with the Jewish holidays. I don't know if they're still going. Honestly, I needed to move it just for myself. Pretend right here in real time, I'm going to pretend it has to do with. And that was God telling me I needed to believe in him.
Oh, wow.
Yeah, that was the voice of
God.
God
Plays little tricks like that all the time. He really does.
Yeah. That was YouTube opening another window. I never saw Jack. So Jack is like, so what? Hold on. Let me pause. Welcome to the Katie Halper Show. Pausing, taking a deep breath, grounding myself. So happy to be here with Leslie Lee and Jack Allison.
Hi there.
Hey,
hi there. How are you? Great to be here with you guys. Shana Tova, to those out there celebrating.
I couldn't agree more.
I couldn't agree more. I don't know what that means, but it's something. It's either Rosh Hashanah or Yom Kippur. Your guess is as good as mine right now. I'm sorry to my pious viewers.
I'm sure there are many. I'm sure there are many out there just absolutely steamed by your irreverence here.
Yeah, I know. I am being really irreverent. But Jack, I never saw you so like you. Jack, unlike Leslie, Jack gets triggered. So do I. We get triggered. Yeah, no, Leslie is almost always calm and collected. Not like if people are mad in the comments, let's just say my poker face and Jack's poker face, not so good. Leslie's pretty good.
That's true. That's
right?
True. It's true. Yeah.
But I just saw you you seem very disturbed when that YouTube thing happened. And I'm just surprised because you're such a tech guy.
I've just been having, it's because I'm such a tech guy is why, because I was just, before he came on, having horrible audio issues. And that, you're absolutely right that did trigger me in the very traditional sense. It was like I was having a Vietnam flashback, to the moment just before the stream when none of my gear was working. And, for a techie like me, Katie, what are we if not our gear? You know what I mean? It's almost as though I myself am not functioning properly. I appreciate you saying that, but yeah, that was a harrowing moment for me when I thought my gear wasn't going to work.
Yeah. And okay, now I feel good because I don't feel like I was making it up.
No,
we all shared that together. And on that note though, guys, it's okay because we made it. We already made it. I can't believe we came this far. We're here.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah. How was everyone's week?
My week was, pretty uneventful, I guess, to be honest with you. I went to a local hotel for Labor Day, and that was pretty normal and boring. So that was fine. I watched the Chucky movies, Nice. Well, you always tip, but yeah, you had to tip a little extra.
Especially on Labor Day, yeah.
Good, yes, yeah. And I watched the Chucky movies, and that's pretty much about my week here.
You, Leslie?
Just working hard on Struggle Session, which you can find at patreon.com/struggle session or sesh.plus. And we got this is new sesh.show, our main website where you can leave us a voicemail. So if people want to leave voicemails for a show like old school radio sort of thing, you can do that at sesh.show.
Get out of the Twitter replies and start leaving voicemails. Like we're going very classic.
How do I do this? I want to do this. How can I do it? I actually set up a Google phone thing a while ago for people to leave messages, but I expired or something. So how do I do this?
I'll tell you. I'll send you a link to the website.
All right, great. Because I've been wanting to do that. It's a great thing for Patreon also. I was thinking maybe I'll do that for
Pete.
Oh, yeah.
What's a voicemail? Someone writes. Good question.
It's like a Twitter comment, but with your voice.
It's like on voice.
From the before times.
Yeah, right. But you have to talk to the other person like a human being. So that's the one caveat of it. You have to. It convinces you to talk to the other person like a human being.
You're using your voice instead of just trying to be part of the insult Olympics.
Gladiation.
Yeah.
Well, we have a great show for you guys today. It's really a great one. We're going to be talking to none other than a doctor named Dr. Adam Gaffney. Very impressive resume, which we'll get to shortly. But let's just say he's an actual lung doctor. Okay, guys?
Wow.
Like, that's called pulmonologist. But that's pretty special. We are living through the times of COVID. COVID affects the lungs, and we have a pulmonologist. I feel very fortunate to have someone like that on the show. I feel very blessed.
We're not having some fucking chiropractor on here, folks.
This
is real
not.
Deal medicine. You can listen to this advice.
Yeah, but not only that, I mean, of course, we're talking real deal medicine, but even within the realm of real deal medicine, we're talking, I mean, I could have an orthopedist on, I could have an endocrinologist on, and they'd have very useful things to say. But when it comes to COVID, no one, you got your lung guys, pulmonologists, and you got your epidemiologists.
That's right. I've been hearing more about epidemiologists than I feel like I've ever heard in my entire life. I've never heard so much. This is the year for epidemiologists to become stars like never before, Yeah.
Well, I mean, honestly, if we're going to bring in stars, we got the best lineup. We got 2 stars. So not only are we going to bring in Adam Gaffney, who we're going to bring in shortly, then we're going to bring in Tara Reid to talk about Time's Up, and Jack and Tara Reid. And then there's going to be a special guest who I'll tell you about later, but I'll just say the person may or may not be related to me. And that's basically all I'm going to say about that. But guys, before we bring in our first guest, say hello to Nick and Tyler, who are behind the scenes. Nick, do we got that first video queued up? Oh, I see it. Is that it? All right. So guys, look, we got some good things to talk about. We got some good
Delta variant.
All right, guys, we got some good things to talk about. Nick, are you going to play that, or should I? Okay, I'll play.
Governments are looking at
all right, so guys, we have some
for their most formidable
Who's playing
weapon.
it, you or me?
According
Nick.
to the Financial Times, vaccine manufacturers find.
Okay, is this a joke? All right, alrighty. Let's go to the very beginning of that video. See, that was not as seamless as I thought. Okay, let's start it again. Can we cut that? I'm just kidding. We're live. All right, so guys, we should look at some numbers because we have some cause to celebrate. We got some great numbers coming in. Let's just go to the videotape.
Wow.
Pfizer and Moderna have pumped up the prices for their sought-after vaccines.
Oh, wow.
Their new supply agreement with the European Union. While richer countries should be able to absorb the increase, it could be devastating for poorer nations, which are already struggling to procure enough doses. According to the Financial Times, under the new EU contract, Pfizer will raise the price of its COVID-19 vaccine by more than 25% to $23 a dose. Last week, the drug manufacturer increased its sales forecast for the vaccines to $33.5 billion this year, with revenue expected to hit $55 billion in 2023. The EU has reportedly agreed to pay Moderna $25.50 per dose, which is up from about $22 in the first procurement deal. That's still lower than the previously agreed amount of $28.50 due to a growth in demand. AstraZeneca,
where'd that demand growth come from, I wonder?
Yeah. So, guys, I told you the numbers were worth celebrating.
Yeah.
And they certainly are if you are big pharma.
Oh, if you're a shareholder in the Pfizer company, this is a day to celebrate. Yeah.
This is a day to celebrate. Yeah. So, but we don't just care about those numbers, although of course we do care about those numbers. We also care, by the way, about you sharing the stream, liking the stream, because we got to get those numbers up. And this is a show where we really want to have Patreon support because we may get demonetized for what we're about to talk about. Wow. So make sure you go to patreon.com/The Katie Halper Show. Again, patreon.com/The Katie Halper Show. And I will read your comments when you do that. Pretty good, right?
COVID cases are spiking, but so too is the price of the vaccine, of our good old American-made vaccine. So, there's it's a double-edged sword, You have to look at both sides. You really have to look at both sides.
Both sides, yeah.
A rising tides lifts all boats. So
yes, and the rising cases of COVID are rising so many other boats.
Yes.
Yeah.
I mean, you worry about the economy. Hey, there's going to be a lot of money being pumped into these industries. Like, we just need to retrain people to work for high-tech pharma industries.
Yeah, it's true. Like, learn to code, learn to work for high-tech pharma.
Learn to be a virologist.
Learn to mRNA, yeah.
Learn to mRNA. Why aren't you out there learning the mRNA sequence if you're out of a job.
Yeah.
Let's do some mRNA.
Yeah, let's do it. Let's get this party started. Well, guys, as I said, we have a star. We have a doctor to the stars. By stars, I mean lungs. And
the stars of the body.
Yeah, no, stars. I mean, I think stars, they are the stars of the body. They're certainly the stars of this time in which we're living, right? I would say so. So gonna bring this guy in. Just gonna get his bio up because it's too prolific. I don't want to leave anything out, and I had my wrong doc open. Guys, today is a haunted Rosh Hashanah Yom Kippur. I think. Does anyone know which one it is?
I think it's Rosh Hashanah, if I'm not mistaken.
Hashanah.
Yeah.
Okay.
New Year. Is that not right? Yes.
Yeah. It's the New Year. Someone just wrote Happy New Year. Hope you're good. Thank you.
Hey, Happy New Year.
Happy New Year. Guys,
what is
Happy
it, like
New Year.
7,000 or something? What's the year it is?
I don't know, but you know what? You know what else we have to do?
What?
Wait for it. Hold on. I got to get my Instagram up here. How do I get my Instagram up here? PT helps Instagram. Can someone get my Instagram? That sounds so crazy. Hold on. I got it.
It's 5782 on the Hebrew calendar.
But it feels like it's 5781. Am I right?
It's the 80s. It's the 80s. We're in the 80s again. The 5780s.
The 5780s. I can't, if I'm not logged in, I can't. Oh, wait, I can, I think. Can I? Let's see. Hold on. No, if I'm not logged in, this is so annoying. I hate technology. Oh my God, guys. Wait, really quickly. Do you know what I saw?
What's that?
Clickbait.
Oh my. That's a throwback.
It's on now on Netflix.
Oh, it's a show or something like that? What is it?
Oh yeah, tell me about it.
Oh my God, it is so good. I mean, I'm really ashamed of it. In fact, I want to do like I want to kind of do a mini like Patreon only series where I talk about it, kind of ripping off West Wing thing. Which have you guys been on West Wing thing? I forget.
I have.
Yeah,
okay,
I have too.
Yeah. Oh yeah, I think So anyway, we'll talk about it later. They're not even sponsoring this. Let me just wish everyone. Look at this, guys. Happy birthday!
Wow, that's a great. What a birthday!
What a birthday thing! I mean, I don't know why it doesn't work. Like you'd think that Instagram would be able to put my Instagram videos. You see how it's not. But whatever, it's fine. I mean, Facebook runs Instagram, so what do you expect? But happy birthday, Bernie St. Bernard. Happy birthday.
Wow.
So close, yet so far away. And I don't care what you guys have to say about Bernie. He's a good guy. He may have made mistakes. He wasn't even a Democrat. I'll never forgive him for that. Or as Jack puts it, sadly, he was actually a Democrat.
Yeah, in the end, it turned out he was a Democrat, sadly. And still to this day, but let's not get into it.
Well,
we don't need to.
Yeah, we're not going to. Why speak ill of the living? So speaking of mensches, we're going to bring in Dr. Adam Gaffney. He shares, Dr. Adam Gaffney is a physician, writer, public health researcher, public health advocate. He practices pulmonary and critical care medicine at the Cambridge Health Alliance as an assistant professor in medicine at Harvard Medical School, where his research focuses on healthcare financing, reform, and equity care. He is the immediate past president of Physicians for a National Health Program, a nonprofit organization that advocates for Medicare for all health care reform. And you can follow him on Twitter at @AWGaffney. Hello, Dr. Gaffney.
Thanks for having me back.
Of course. Thanks for coming.
Yes, happy to join you all.
Of course. So, Adam, you are in the trenches. Tell us about what you're seeing. I guess first I want to ask you, as someone who actually works on the ICU, about how you were experiencing COVID, like what COVID means, how you experience it firsthand.
Sure. Well, I mean, it's obviously a once in a lifetime pandemic. It is strange when what you do for work suddenly goes into the headlines, right? Like typically the kinds of things I do in an ICU, things like ventilators and intubations and all this are not things that people talk about typically, or rarely, in very select moments. So it has been surreal since this started for the sorts of things that we do to be talked about on the national stage and you know, by the water cooler everywhere, people are talking about these kinds of issues, sadly and tragically. We've had 2 big surges in Massachusetts, so obviously during those moments, there's been an enormous amount of work, and it's you know, something that none of us have seen before or anything like it. Right now, I think what's so sad is knowing that so many of the cases that we're still seeing in the ICU were totally preventable in a way they weren't a year ago. And so that for me is the most salient fact of being in an ICU right now.
And what are the numbers looking like? What is the trend? How are the numbers going? How are the cases going? And then I'm going to ask you about who is actually unvaccinated. But
sure. So I mean, overall, things are going terribly in the country at large. I mean, there's very large numbers of deaths every day. No one, I don't think, thought that this would be this bad even after the vaccine came out. That being said, it's very variable from state to state. Some states are doing okay, and other states, obviously, like, you know, Florida and Texas, are seeing ghastly surges of cases, hospitalizations, and deaths. So it's regionally dependent, and we can talk about why that is. But overall, we are still seeing an enormous amount of death right now. And so the hope that we had, that all of us shared, that with the rollout of the vaccine, that this would be behind us, has not panned out. And I think, you know, maybe we can talk about it too, does call for more measures in addition to vaccines.
And so, you know, there's a lot of talk of the pandemic of the unvaccinated. There's a lot of discussion of people who are not getting vaccinated as like anti-vaxxers. Who are obviously you can't reveal too much detail because of HIPAA, but who are the unvaccinated who you are encountering, and why are they unvaccinated?
Yeah, as you said, I can't speak to any patients, but as a general premise,
well, you can speak to them.
I can speak speak
as a doctor
the details of
yes,
right. But as a general point, and I will say I work at a safety net hospital, that health system that disproportionately cares for you know, immigrants and disadvantaged people. So it's not necessarily a you know, perfect illustration of the unvaccinated in America. But the reality is that the unvaccinated are not any one coherent group. I mean, you know, a lot of the people who are unvaccinated are not hardcore anti-vax ideology folks. They are people who, for a wide variety of reasons, have not yet gotten vaccinated. And some of them, by the time they get sick, you know, wish they had, and just hadn't gotten around to it. So you see a wide variety of issues. You see a wide variety of barriers. Life is, you know, a lot of people have very busy lives, have many responsibilities, and you know, just haven't gotten around to it. In other cases, and I think an important thing to talk about, is the ways in which the healthcare system, you know, falls short in actually rolling out the vaccine proactively and not waiting for people to come for it. And so I think that there are things that we can point to in American healthcare system that probably contribute to the underperformance. I mean, if you just look at the numbers right now, you know, everyone knew that we had this big U.S. rollout of the vaccine in the winter, that, you know, we were sort of ahead of the pack. And that's in large part because we got a lot of vaccines very early on, another issue we should discuss. But since then, our relative advantage, you know, has faded. I mean, if you look at some recent numbers, you know, 73% of people in France have had at least one vaccine, 72% in Italy, 71% in the United Kingdom, 68% in Sweden, 65% in Germany, and we're behind at 62%. And our proportion of elderly who are unvaccinated is also higher than many nations. So this means that we have a very large number of people who are still susceptible to a deadly virus, and it's totally preventable. It's sad, but again, there's not one easy solution, and the unvaccinated people are coming at this for many different reasons.
Yeah. So, and can you talk more about how access to healthcare and, you know, the way the United States approaches healthcare, how that has had an impact on vaccination rates?
Sure. Well, there's a few things. Now, when you talk about this, the first thing someone will push back against you is, well, wait a second, you know, we made this vaccine free. It is free. And that's true, as we should have. It is absolutely should be, like all healthcare, in my opinion. And that's a separate issue. But the reality is you can't overnight suddenly make up for all the deficiencies of a healthcare system. People are used to paying a lot for healthcare, getting surprise bills, getting having to pay deductible, so on and so forth. And so there was reporting in the Times that some people, even though the vaccine is free, still are worried about costs. I think that was Sarah Cliff. So that's one proportion. I'm not saying that's everyone, but that's some proportion who no doubt still have those fears. And you see that reflected in the fact, at least partially reflected in the fact, that among the uninsured, vaccination rates are much lower than those who are. So something's going on there, right? The other part, though, to think about is not just worry about costs, but having a dedicated healthcare provider, doctor, nurse practitioner, primary care physician who knows you for a long time, who you trust, who's there to give you advice, who's there to give you counsel on important medical issues. And the fact is that if you're uninsured, you don't have that, almost certainly, because you're kept out of the healthcare system. But many people with insurance also don't have primary care doctors. One study found that 25% of Americans don't have sort of primary care. And so that's another way in which our system fails. Because, again, there's a lot of misinformation out there. There's a lot of information. And digesting it all can be very difficult. And we can all, do our best to go on the internet and read. But there's no substitute for someone whose job it is to help you, make decisions about medical issues. And that's a key role for primary care doctors. And we don't have a primary care-based system. We have a fragmented system that, again, leaves 30 million people uninsured and leaves 25% of people without a primary care doctor. So those are just some very straightforward, sort of unambiguous ways in which I think our healthcare system could have done better with the vaccine rollout had we, had things been designed differently. The last thing I'll just throw in there real quick, we underfund public health agencies enormously in this country. So that's different than healthcare, right? That's like the state public health agency, the city public health agency, or the CDC at the federal level. And these, the neoliberal push towards austerity has undermined and underfunded these agencies. So we relied far too much on the private sector and not enough on the public sector to do the kinds of campaign that needed to be done.
Yeah. Wow, thank you for that. It's really fascinating and important information and a really good synthesis of so many issues. And I saw you retweeting a study about decarceration, or I guess I should say the incarceration and COVID. Could you, I know, and you have your own study that you just did, which we can get to, but can you just summarize the study that you tweeted out?
Yeah, there's been a couple studies by this group. The long and short of it is this: we need to do more than just vaccines to protect people from COVID, and we need to focus on areas where there's tons of transmission. And so this group has found that jails are places which we know where a lot of COVID spread happens. But not only that, the cycling of people in and out of jails is actually causing outbreaks, and it's actually increasing the number of people with COVID. And so, this group, one of their studies was in Chicago and Illinois, and they found like a big chunk of total COVID cases in Chicago and Illinois were the result of people cycling in and out of jail and out of and so that's an example of a public health intervention that we need to undertake. Get people out of jail, get people out of prison. That's the way you solve that problem. Similarly, the evictions issue. There's evidence that protecting people from evictions can drive COVID cases. And just unemployment insurance, right? I mean, forcing people back to jobs that may not be safe is not a good way to fight a pandemic that sometimes spreads occupationally.
Yeah. Someone just put in, someone just said my brother's afraid to turn himself in because he has warrants. I'm not actually sure I realized that after I read that. I don't know if you mean turn yourself in, if he means turn himself in for the vaccine or what. So let me know in the comments. But okay. And so this is an example of I think it's really important because some people are like, wait, but Medicare for all, we apply that, as you said, Adam, but we give everyone the vaccine. So this should be working swimmingly. And as you said, there's an issue of trust. There's an issue of access. People are afraid of hitting costs when they're kind of like trained to have a relationship that's not that trustworthy. They're going to be more suspicious. Like if you have, I've had in the past, like my doctor, just moved out of state, and I had to wait a really long time on the phone. I happened to tweet about it because I was so upset about it. I don't think it was Karenish, because I think it's okay, because I'm like not it's a hospital. It's not like a person. It's Mount Sinai.
It's not Karenish to post about the inhumane healthcare system in the United States, you know.
Well, it wasn't like, because I'm a woman, and like you need to get a pap smear. I mean, there's a big debate about how frequently, but that's an issue. It's like I shouldn't have to be waiting for that, because you can get cervical cancer, right? I mean, it is kind of like and I'm not particularly like I have a lot of resources. I'm not particularly vulnerable, but I like was on the phone. I mean, this just hit me. It's like if I had a 9 to 5, I wouldn't be able to make those calls during work. I'd have to take a break to do it, but I was on the phone forever, just trying to get through, just trying to get one of my doctors replaced, my primary care and OBGYN. And but I have had great relationships with my primary care doctors, and my dad's a doctor too, so I probably have more like and I have a good relationship with my dad. If I had a terrible one, I'd probably hate doctors. Anyway, my point is that like there are a lot of barriers that are put between patients and their providers, and I can imagine how even if you have a doctor who you like the system, you may just not trust the system, right? Like people have sympathetic doctors who try to help them, and they just can't because of insurance, as you know, obviously more than anyone else.
And then obviously there's groups that have well-grounded distrust in the healthcare system as a result of experiencing racism, exclusion, and worse in history, right?
Experimentation.
So there's that aspect too. So you can't suddenly turn history back on a dime. I think. Yeah.
Right. I mean, we saw that also like with the HIV stuff in South Africa too. You can't turn back history on a dime. Yeah.
You talked about people being afraid of receiving bills for the COVID vaccine, because that's kind of the modus operandi of the American healthcare system is for you to show up at the office and then receive a bill. There's good reason for people to be afraid of that, because there are, even though this is supposed to be a federally free shot, there are reports of people who did receive bills for things like the office visit while they were getting their COVID vaccine shot. So, these are not just like conspiratorial fears. Receiving a bill after a COVID shot is something that not everyone, but many people did end up actually having happen to them.
You certainly saw that as well. When COVID was starting, there was rightly an understanding that if it was business as usual in American healthcare, people wouldn't come in for testing. If they didn't come in for testing, they might infect others, wouldn't come into the hospital potentially, and maybe even die at home. And certainly with the vaccine, and there have been policy steps along the way to try to address that. But what we've seen, particularly with testing and with hospitals, that those provisions were imperfect. And there's been reporting of people actually getting testing bills and this and that. And that just speaks to a fragmented system. And again, the fact that it's very hard to, without actually having Medicare for all, without having national health insurance, it's hard to sort of piecemeal, make a sort of Medicare for all for one disease state. That would have been good if it really had happened. It happened partially, I suppose, but it's still not enough. And the reality is that this pandemic is going to end, and people have other conditions, and there may be pandemics in the future. And there's just regular old pneumonia and heart disease and lung disease and everything else, and diabetes, and there's no reason why any of those conditions should impose charges on patients either.
Right. And I want to talk about a couple of issues in terms of the unvaccinated. Let's see. There's a clip that I think you will find particularly interesting, Jack, given your employment history. Nick, do we have the clips? Those two other ones. Let's see. If not, I can get them.
It's up more than 300% from a year ago. Dr. Fauci said that if hospitals get any more overcrowded, they're going to have to make some very tough choices about who gets an ICU bed. That choice doesn't seem so tough to me. Vaccinated person having a heart attack, yes, come right on in. We'll take care of you. Unvaccinated guy who gobbled horse goo, rest in peace, Wheezy. The poison control centers have seen this spike in call.
Right.
So that's Jimmy Kimmel saying that the hospital numbers are going up, and his his plan is to admit people if they were vaccinated, and I guess not admit them if they. We don't know if they're not vaccinated, but if they
Kay, let me correct you. That is Dr. Jimmy Kimmel. You didn't give him his proper title.
There are the two types of people, of course. There's the perfectly vaccinated MSNBC watching liberal, and then there's the redneck conservative Confederate flag waving Trumpster who believes in conspiracy theories and squeezes horse paste up his ass. Those are literally the two types of people that live in America. You know, the thing is, what's funny is that you play this Kimmel clip, and obviously he's like making a joke of it and, you know, saying this like fucked up thing. But if you've watched like a lot of CNN or MSNBC in the last couple months, they're making that without even the pretense of humor. You watch the Chris Cuomo show and there is like a lust for death of the unvaccinated. And I swear to God, I'm like, what you're not noticing when you're saying that is you're basically saying like, I don't think 60% of black people should be admitted into hospitals. Which, like, I don't think that's necessarily what you want to be saying.
Yeah, I mean, it reminds me of the way that there's a real contempt for like the people who live in certain states. And again, it's like those states that you don't like the way they vote, they have a lot of black people in them, and they're not like. First of all, I don't agree with like wishing the worst for people who vote for someone bad. But like you're also, as Reverend Barber calls them, they're not Republican states, they're unorganized voter suppressed states, which is I think an interesting thing to remember. But like, you know, like when you have like Charlotte Clymer, like, you know, painting her nails emoji because something terrible happens in Georgia.
In Georgia,
it's like, what do you not understand what you're saying? So yes, I think that like it's offensive, it's out of touch. And I'm going to turn to you, Adam, in a second, but I just want to ask you, you know, Adam, you've been a resident, of course, but here the resident expert on this is Jack, because Jack worked for Jimmy Kimmel. What insights can you share with us about the way this man thinks?
You know, I do think that he fashions and considers himself an erudite sort of liberal. I think he thinks of himself as smart, you know, because he's probably, you know, has his ego, you know, piqued by a lot of like other famous and kind of rich people because he has access and he has money. You know what I mean? I'm like, this is somebody who, you know, when I worked there was like, I'm going to dinner with Joe Biden with my wife. I'm like, he just interacts differently with like the way the world is. Like Joe Biden's not taking any of us to dinner. You know what I mean? So I think that in my opinion, and I did work for him, I think he's just not that bright a guy who is a deep believer in the meritocracy and is surrounded by nothing but people who sort of reaffirm that belief.
Yeah. I mean, and also I think that, yeah, he was making it jokey, but I actually think he was basically saying what he thinks. I don't know if he wants to formally implement the system, but I kind of get the sense that he, you know, believes it on some level. And what's your response to that, Adam, as someone who obviously does believe in the vaccine and encourages people to get it?
Yeah, I mean, I have no insight into what Jimmy Kimmel actually thinks, but the truth is that other people have said this, I think, as Jack said, without a pretense of humor. I think there was an op-ed in the Washington Post recently making this case. So it's not, it's by no means a sort of, you know, purely fringe sort of thing. Yeah, I mean, look, I am truly as pro-vaccine as one can be, and I want everyone to be vaccinated so that we stop seeing hundreds of people dying every day for nothing. But the fact is this is completely immoral, completely unethical to talk about denying healthcare to people because they made a bad decision. From my perspective, we're all sinners when it comes to our health. We all make good choices. We all make bad choices. The job of doctors, the job of nurses is not to dole out medical care, you know, based on your sort of their perceptions of your worthiness from a health perspective. I completely disagree with that from an ethical perspective. It also, I mean, this system doesn't even make any sense. It wouldn't like play out the way they even understand it. I mean, I don't even understand. The patient at the end of the day is going to be in the emergency room and being cared for by your colleagues. What, you know, this doesn't make any sense. So anyway, but regardless of that, even if there was a way to do the logistics or whatever, I'm completely opposed to it. I mean, look, the fact of the matter is that people who are unvaccinated are disproportionately lower income and lower educated. So you would be, in fact, consigning, you would be adding further injury to disadvantaged people. And in any event, there's just simply no ethical justification for it. We don't do that in medicine. That's not our jobs, and nor should it be. And the people who keep making the case for it really don't know what the hell they're talking about.
Yeah.
Yeah. I mean, I don't actually think it is like, I'm not suggesting this, but like, what I guess what would they do? They would be like, have you taken the vaccine? I mean, obviously people would then start to lie. Let's just say, right? Obviously you'd be like, yeah, but I guess I don't know if that's the idea. I mean, I've heard people say this about smokers getting, and in fact, you, Adam, you mentioned the argument in the Washington Post op-ed, right? Which I'm trying to get it up. It's paywalled, but people will, I believe, correct me if I'm wrong, it mentioned smokers getting lung transplants, which
the transplant issue has been raised again and again as a sort of precedent for this. It's not a good precedent. First of all, there's debate about whether the ways we sometimes allocate organs is totally correct. And so it's not as though that's completely settled. But even furthermore, the arguments that it is true that certain things can exclude you from consideration for active transplantation, but the arguments that are used to justify that are not, you don't deserve it. It's that transplants can sometimes do more harm than good if people can't engage in certain things. With lung transplants, for instance, if you were not to take any of your medications, you could actually shorten someone's life after a transplant. So you do have to select and be careful about what you're doing. So it's not a good precedent. And again, there's arguments that maybe some of the ways that it's not settled all of the things that are done in transplants either. So, I mean, I was on, this is also sort of closely similar to the argument being made that we should increase healthcare premiums for unvaccinated people. And I was on with Mehdi Hassan and on Chris Hayes' show talking about this and debating this. And I'm against that too. Look, we actually tried this already with smokers. When the Affordable Care Act rolled out, there was actually a provision that allowed insurance companies to charge a premium to smokers for their healthcare insurance. And that was studied. And what they found was that all it did was it actually pushed smokers out of getting health insurance. And it actually didn't reduce smoking cessation. It didn't encourage smoking cessation, right? So what's the end effect of that? Well, then the smokers aren't actually getting seen by a doctor, and they're not quitting anyway. So what's the point of that? I think that is different from mandates in certain places. Like I think that that's justifiable to require vaccination, but I don't agree with the sort of punitive approach that's being.
Right. So one is, I agree. I'm a mandate gal. Not gonna lie.
I feel like that's why this country just literally can't handle COVID-19 is because we're too free. We're the individualist nation. We're the customer is always right nation, where you get to express, who you are as a person based on the consumer choices you make and stuff. And I just, when it comes to a public health event where people need to do things for the common good, it almost seems like the core American ethos is like set against succeeding at that,
Yeah. I mean, I think that there's a difference between, as you said, like being punitive and vindictive, and also like suggesting that people do things. There are a couple of things. There's like the mask mandate, right? Then there's the vaccine mandate. And I feel like we should talk about the elephant in the room, or the horse in the room, if you will. Let's just go there. Let's just do it. Let's talk about it.
Lord.
This whole thing. I mean, I'm gonna call it a degusanoer. For people who don't know, gusano means worm in Spanish. It's also a term used for people who leave Cuba for political reasons as opposed to economic refugees. But these degusanos, what is the deal? We have a lot of people, and I bring this up also, and I'm really glad that you're here, Adam, because it's not inconceivable that people have the right to be, and they have good reason to be suspicious of pharmaceuticals and the pharmaceutical industry. And a lot of people will bring up if I bring up the vaccine, they're like, what about them being able to be sued? Should we be fighting for that? Because they have all these protections. And so let's talk about the vaccine, and what do you have to say to people who are like, well, the vaccine is not good for you. It's it's a way to get people. I don't know. What are the theories? Well, there's one that the vaccine isn't good. Then another theory is that the degusanoer is good, and it's just getting a raw deal. Can you just explore some of those and respond to them?
Absolutely. So, I don't know. Let's start with the vaccine. I mean, so let's start with the issue you raised, which is like skepticism at the pharmaceutical industry. I'm skeptical of the pharmaceutical industry. I mean, I want to see, massive transformation, and actually publicly funded healthcare, pharmaceutical research to keep drugs in the public domain. But the fact of the matter is that's not quite how it works right now. And the pharmaceutical drugs, medications are very valuable and important to us. And the fact that they're made by profit maximizing firms doesn't mean that they are not valuable products, right? Think about all the things that we've commoditized in the United States. Think about all the things that are commoditized under our version of capitalism. Obviously, there's a useful things because otherwise we wouldn't be talking about redistributing them, right? If the only thing that was commoditized was goop stuff, then which is commoditized. It doesn't matter as much, right? And the whole point of moving towards national health insurance, the whole point is because these are privatized services. These are things that are treated as commodities that actually should be made public and treated as social goods, right? And so that's why we want to do that. If we didn't want to do that, if they weren't valuable, we wouldn't want to do that. So just a sort of general way to think about this maybe slight lack of comfort that some people have about, well, I'm sort of furious at sort of the greed and everything else the pharmaceutical companies do, but okay. So there's that. Okay. Second question is the efficacy of the vaccines. Look, the vaccines have been rolled out in an enormous number of people. Safety profile is extremely good. Serious adverse reactions are extraordinarily rare. And COVID is not extraordinarily rare. It's extremely common. And the fact is, despite all the discussion about breakthrough infections, yada, 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 the efficacy of the vaccines against hospitalization, death, ICU stays, having to deal with people like me, the vaccine efficacy.
Now you're disincentivizing her, Adam. No one's going to get vaccine now.
Right.
No, and it has been maintained at over 90%. So by simply getting the vaccine, you are basically giving yourself a potential get out of death-free card. Okay, so we need to really push that message, and that's been there's been a lot of misinformation about that. Now, to talk about ivermectin for a moment. So the fact is, look, I want more medications that work against COVID. We don't have enough. We have some. There have been some that have been shown to be useful. Steroids and a couple other medications we don't need to get into for critically ill patients. Obviously, the kinds of things we do in the ICU can help some patients get through a life-threatening bout of COVID. But we want more medications. I would love it if this medication worked, right? I would be the first to use it if it worked. But the evidence base for it is very shoddy. Now, there were trials that were positive. And this led to some thought, well, maybe there's something here. When people have actually looked into some of the trials that really gave a lot of the apparent support, like one of the big ones is very shady, very shoddy, and was actually ultimately retracted. Okay, and they had to there's something called a meta-analysis, which is when you combine a lot of trials into one to sort of shed more light on the problem. And they actually, once you took that trial out, the meta-analysis, which people had used to sort of say this was an effective treatment, actually no longer showed what they thought it showed. So that's what's going on. Meanwhile, there are some very pernicious actors, and I don't know what their motivation is, but that are out there and that are pushing this drug as a vaccine substitute. The FLCCC, which is a coalition of, I guess, critical care doctors, have been, putting this out there. One of them testified in front of the Senate at the request of a Republican senator, and they are making this sound like a vaccine substitute. If you go to their website, they actually, for their prevention for COVID protocol, it has all these funny things like mouthwash and ivermectin and this and that. It doesn't even mention vaccines. So there's something shady happening there. And I am furious about this because people are believing this, and they are taking this as a substitute for the vaccine, and some of them are dying. And you just need to go onto Google News and read about those cases. And what a tragedy! What a complete and unnecessary loss of life. And it makes me so upset.
Yeah, you say though that there are no experts, that think ivermectin is good, but I'm going to push back on that a little because I have heard a number of YouTube hosts that say it's good. So there are a number of YouTubers that whose channels I watch who say it's good, and so they don't lie to me about anything else, especially that I donate to and stuff. So I feel like maybe I'll squeeze some horse paste up my ass.
Yeah.
And I think, like the reality is that I don't, I have no, I think shaming, I think shaming or ridicule of people who may, as I said earlier, who make decisions is totally not my game. We probably all engage in things that make no sense, right? Health wise, we all take things that we heard about might help this, that, whatever. It's just it's universal to human nature. What I do take issue with is the sort of purveyors and the prominent people who are making this into their brand and are way out of their depth. In terms of the evidence, I don't know what they truly believe in their heart of hearts. I don't care that much because I think that whether or not in the final analysis ivermectin shows some modest benefit, which it could, that's not going to make it a substitute for vaccines at all, not even in the slightest. And the fact is that a big trial done by a respected group out of McMaster University was preliminary results reported, and that's showing no effect whatsoever. So it's not looking good for this medication. Again, I hope it works, but it's unlikely it does, and we don't. And certainly it's looking worse as each day goes onward. And again, there's this epidemiologist out of Australia, Gideon Meyerowitz Kurt. I may have mangled his name actually, so I apologize to him. But he's done a deep dive into the study. Gideon MK, he goes by, I think, on Twitter. He's done a deep dive into the ivermectin literature and found that it's rife with shoddy, shady kind of figures and facts. So there you have it.
Yeah. I mean, people are like, ivermectin. Well, they're like, it's been used in humans for 30 years. I mean, that doesn't mean it's an effective vaccine. Yeah. No one's saying.
No, I mean, penicillin. I hear this all the time. Like, it won the Nobel Prize. It's like, that's great. So, like, penicillin's wonderful too. A lot of things are wonderful. Water is great, right? Like, you can't live without water, but it's not a substitute for a vaccine. I could talk about how good water is, and it's not going to fill in.
Right.
What's so strange to me about this is it feels like the same people who are very big into ivermectin are the same people who were first denying that COVID was real, that it was deadly, that it was, and like at every step of the way, it was like, COVID isn't this serious. We don't need to do anything. And now there's like this dangerous medicine to take to prevent COVID that at the beginning of this, they didn't think was real. And again, just the jumping over the vaccine. I don't want to take the vaccine. I want to take this other. It's just so strange.
Horse paste.
Well, this is okay.
It's still a very specific political purpose, right? So hydroxychloroquine was the same thing, right? That was what Trump and Republicans were sort of pushing. And why? Is there any particular reason why they particularly like that? No, it's because it was a reason to say, well, we don't really need to take this that seriously. We got this miracle cure that you can get for nickels. So, like, let's just not do anything. And then so ivermectin, again, even whatever the final analysis shows, it's played a similar role. It's basically played an identity politics, culture war, wedge issue role that has been very effective, apparently, which is sad.
Yeah, trans species people, for people who horse identify. It's it's identity politics for the horse sign, the horse sign,
the equine set.
The equine set. Yeah. Well, I mean, okay. I just want to give you the chance to respond to this. IVM is known to be safer than aspirin. There is zero reason not to give it. Only criminality. Wake up to what's going on here.
Look, again, I think this speaks to, it speaks to some of the issues we've talked about with, skepticism at pharmaceutical companies, skepticism at the medical establishment, and some of that skepticism is warranted, but the fact of the matter is that the evidence doesn't show clear evidence at all of benefit. As we learn more, it's looking shadier. Some of the studies that have been positive. The new study I mentioned that was very respected group is negative. And anyway, regardless of what you think about it, it's not a substitute for vaccination.
Yeah.
And that's, I think, the most important point that I would want people to take home.
And the main thing I'll say, because there are a lot of people who are kind of pushing back on this. I can understand why they're pushing back on Adam, because you're a doctor, you're a voice of authority. Like, what do you care if Jack, Katie, or I think about ivermectin? If you actually think it's a medicine that you should take, what do you care if anyone else is saying it? Why are you on the YouTube stream arguing about this? Like, I don't go around like pushing like certain medications in like various YouTube channels. Like even if I take it, like I take a medicine, I don't go around advocating for it. So it's very strange that, like you said, it is serving a political purpose. It's not about like medical care. Like if you're on Twitter yelling at people, like you're not talking about like medicine. You're just like participating in some sort of culture war. I'm sorry, if you believe in taking this, you should be talking to your mother, your uncle, your sister about taking it. Not random. You should not be doing that.
Right.
But if you were
consistent, serious, you're saying like if you really if the goal is converting people.
If you wanted, if it was about health, like you would be talking maybe to your doctor about it, I would suggest. But yeah, not Twitter and YouTuber, which is where where all of this is like coming from. Like it's very strange. Like how many medical conversations do you have with Joe Rogan?
Somebody talking about ivermectin is a good way for me to know they watch too much YouTube. That's just like flying the YouTube flag is like I'm watching a lot of YouTube channels. If you're an ivermectin fan,
yeah, I mean it's I wanted to show actually if we could, we have another video of okay, then really good question. I don't want to fund the feed the trolls, but I gotta hold on one second. Here's a good question. Why are we taking a vaccine that inbred Rothschilds are funding? Someone had to ask that. I really, okay, sorry. One second. That's food for thought. Think about the inbred Rothschilds.
I'm taking horse dewormer,
which is really key. So you got to follow the money to the inbred Rothschilds. So I don't know how to respond to that, but here we're going to watch a clip about Joe Rogan, and then we have a question. Dr. Gaffney, there's a radio host with initials named AJ who says people will die in 2 years from COVID vaccine. He isn't saying allegedly. He's saying they will. How is this legal to do on the air?
A radio host said that? Oh, how's it legal to do on the air? Yeah. Okay, fair enough.
Yeah. I mean, I don't know who that person is.
That's a good question, yeah.
Obviously, I'm not a listener to AJ.
There are looser rules with broadcast. Yeah.
Okay.
Wait a second.
No, I mean,
your first name does start with an A. And you have a microphone.
Could be.
Ah, shit. I'm losing my connection. I'm sorry. I'm having a delay.
Oh, we got a question in the super chat. I can read it for you, Katie.
Nice.
I think it's for you, Adam.
Thanks.
Traditional vaccines block infection permanently using the whole virus, such as polio vaccine, versus mRNA drugs designed to boost the immune system and teach it to look for infected cells, thus requiring boosters?
Yeah, so there's a number of different types of vaccines, and they work in different ways. Look, it would be wonderful if we had a vaccine that, had 100% efficacy against acquiring this infection. Obviously, that would be preferable to one that was very good but not perfect. But that's just not how biology works, right? Like, think about flu, right? We get flu multiple times over the course of our life, again and again. Having had it or having the vaccine doesn't mean you don't get it. You still can get it. But because of that exposure over time, it usually is not a severe disease, right? But in 1918, when the Great Flu hit, no one had seen that flu before, and it killed countless people across the globe, right? So this vaccine makes you more acclimated and more able to respond rapidly to this virus, thus not always preventing breakthrough infections, which most of the time, but it does prevent you from going to the ICU or dying. And that is the most important thing. If you get a breakthrough infection and it's an upper respiratory infection and you feel like crap for 3 days, that's bad, but that's not the most important thing. So I think there's been a lot of misunderstanding about this breakthrough infection business. Well, why should I take this vaccine if there's a chance I'll get COVID anyway? But you know what? If you do get it, you're almost certainly not going to get sick and wind up in the hospital. And that's all we care. That's what we care about most at the end of the day.
Yeah. And someone asked, someone said, someone warned not to say it's the best solution. Ivermectin is the best solution. The way they're restricting and slandering it is literally insane. Don't be on the wrong side of history, the side that kill. Okay, so just remember that. Also, wait, hold on one second. There's a people are saying that the 13,000 people have died from the vaccine as per government database. I don't know what that's a reference to. Did I already read this? I'm from Norway and fully vaccinated. This was a great comment from Martin Rad. I'm from Norway and fully vaccinated. We've got to be honest. Vaccinations work if the whole world gets access to it. The best solution would have been the Chinese style lockdown, but capitalism won again. Someone asked me, let me ask you this, Katie. Do you know the ingredients of the vaccine? Why not? And then this is an interesting question that Nick highlighted.
Whip up your own. You know, if you know the ingredients, you can whip up one at home.
Yeah.
Make sure it's all clean and good.
How can you suggest people should be forced to take a vaccine that does not stop you getting it or transmitting it? That's some seriously insane thinking. I mean, I have a response to that, but I'll throw that to you, Adam.
Well, I might just sound like a broken record. I mean, again, the point is to stop people from dying. 650,000 people are dead. We don't need to do this anymore. The point is not to prevent colds and flus. It's to prevent pneumonia and death. That's the point. That's why we're mandating it. That's why it matters.
Yeah, I mean, seatbelts don't prevent you from killing other people, but I still believe in seatbelt mandates. I mean, maybe that's controversial because it's considered paternalistic, but I'm paternalistic. Yeah. Oh my God, someone did this. I gotta just highlight this. Can we kill this once and forever? My body equals my choice. By the way, I was telling my friend how much I hate this analogy because I don't think having an injection, which gives you something that prevents you from dying in a hospital, is like being forced to carry a zygote to human term.
It should be my right to catch polio if I want to. I should be allowed to get fucking polio if I feel like it.
Yeah. But my friend was telling me that they took their son to a pro-choice rally, and there was like my body, my choice, and then they took the kid home, and he was like 2.5 or 3, and they wanted to give him a bath, and he was like, my body, my choice. So like that may be a better analogy than this. But yeah, you as someone who's a doctor, and I think you're pro-choice. What say ye?
I mean, it's a ludicrous analogy, and it's particularly offensive at a time when, reproductive health care rights are being totally trampled on, when Texas has effectively outlawed almost virtually all abortions, or the vast majority. That's a horrible restriction on freedom and on healthcare access. On the other hand, having mandates in workplaces and airplanes for a disease that not only is dangerous to oneself but can be transmitted and hurt others is completely within the confines of the sorts of public health rules and regulations that democratic societies have employed for a long time. It's an offensive analogy.
Yeah, I agree. Jack, apparently you're a neo-lib. Just wanted to make sure you knew that.
I didn't know that it makes you a neolib, to think that the horse paste doesn't work. But I guess if you watch a certain guy's YouTube channel, you think that that's a leftist take. You think it's like core to leftism to believe in the Ivermectin drug. If you're the fan of one certain comedian.
Well, someone also was like, it's wild to see a Jewish woman talk about, wait, where is this? Something was like, it's wild to see a Jewish woman defend, where is this? Does anyone see this? Something about, it's kind of wild that a Jewish woman is okay with government forcing medical treatment on citizens. I mean, if only the Nazis had forced medical treatment on its citizens. Like, this is something I think we need to review a little bit. There's a difference between like mandates for all and selective sterilization. Like, I don't really experimentation. Like, well, it's not like Dr. Mengele was like, you want to go on this flight, then you better fucking come on down to my office, buddy, Hans, or whatever. That's kind of the whole point. Like, I'd be nervous if this were targeted. That's the kind of the point, is that it's not targeted. And if it were bad for people, then the most vulnerable would be being experimented on. And and a way that we know it works probably is the fact that there is vaccine apartheid. Because if this were so crappy, then why would the United States be hoarding it? Or are we supposed to assume that like all the rules don't apply anymore?
Yeah, that's another, I think an issue we didn't get to, but what's happening in terms of the distribution of the vaccine internationally is horrible. I think the latest statistic I saw was that of the African continent, I think 5% of people have been vaccinated. This vaccine should have been rolled out on a global basis from day one, equitably, across the globe. And instead, sort of rich the politicians of rich countries and the heads of pharmaceutical firms have basically worked together in such a way as to have a total terrifying inequity of vaccine availability.
Yeah. Let's see. Rogan recovered using a treatment that included human ivermectin. Calling it a horse face is dangerous. People will think that's what he did and copy. Okay. Do we know what he did?
I mean, it doesn't matter. I think the horse stuff, the fact is, it is a human drug that you can get at a pharmacy for parasitic infections. It's also used in veterinary medicine. Probably the reason why there has been veterinary use is because it's not available anymore, presumably because it's being prescribed so heavily, it's being used so heavily. Again, I think it's better. I mean, look, I think it's better to really lean in on or push this sort of vitriol at the sort of wealthy and powerful and knowledgeable people who are sort of making a brand out of COVID denialism and or ivermectin sort of trutherism, and not at the people who are making bad decisions because they've been sort of told a bunch of garbage. And I think, I think that's the real takeaway issue. And I think also it's, the people who have been read on this road and are not getting vaccinated. And I mean, again, as I said earlier, we've all made decisions of this sort. We've all made bad health decisions. What's different here is that it's so unnecessary and the consequences are so large and the window to to matter is closing.
Yeah.
And if people don't get vaccinated soon, they're going to get COVID.
Right. What about masks?
How do I feel about them?
Yeah, like how effective are they? I mean, I think something that happens also is that people lose faith in science because things change, like the recommendations change, and they're like, well, they don't know anything because if they did, they wouldn't have said this. First they said this, now they're saying that.
Right. Like eggs used to be good to eat, and then they were bad, and then they were.
Oh, really? I thought eggs were still good.
I have no idea, but the nutritional epidemiology literature, it gets ridiculed for like I don't know. What's a better example? Bacon or coffee, or I don't know.
Right.
Anyway, yes. These things go back and forth, and that's always going to be the case. It's going to, for the rest of our lives, it's going to be changing sort of scientific consensus. The fact is that there's strong evidence that masks work. This just came out, this large randomized trial in Bangladesh that you may have heard about. It was in it made headlines, and they actually randomized like whole villages, masks versus not masks, or not so much masks versus not masks, but encouraging mask use, like very actively versus not. I should say, and they did find that there was less COVID spread in the villages, the localities where they made a really big effort to push it. So it makes a difference. It's not a miracle. Like the other thing that people, I think that has to be, realize is like in medicine, nothing is perfect, right? So everything is, an incremental benefit. It's a little bit of protection. It's a little more way to save lives. And that's what we're after.
Yeah. I mean, I'm for that. Someone accused me here. Apparently, I censor and belittle questions she's uncomfortable hearing. Well, I certainly don't censor them because I just read your question. I won't even have to belittle it. I think it speaks for itself. So there you go.
But I just want to say, I think that's important to keep in mind because I think there's a risk, and I'm slightly repeating myself, but I think there is a risk here of thinking that the problem is simply, lack of education and kind of, yokels who are kind of, have these, misguided ideas. And what that takes away is the sort of people who are monetizing misinformation. And they're the real nemesis here. I mean, like someone like Alex Berenson, who's been peddling COVID nonsense since this pandemic started. God knows how much money the man has made from this all, between all of his things. And so, that's really, I think, where we need to direct our ire. And some of these prominent, social media, again, the physicians, I don't know their motivation, who have been pushing this through the FLCC. Again, that's where we should really be honing our criticism.
Yeah.
We're directing our criticism.
Yeah. Where you hone it, it's your own business. And for A now asks, can the doctor address issues and complications associated with the vaccine, possible percentages?
So the reactions are very rare. I mean, the most well-publicized one was with the Johnson & Johnson, which particularly in younger group individuals very, 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 very rarely was associated with blood clots. And so that's out there, obviously. There are some extremely rare complications. But I mean, the fact is that the vast majority of the side effects people have had, things like a sore arm, fatigue for a couple of days, are short-lived, go away pretty quickly, and they're not serious. The other thing that you have to keep in mind is, like, well, what's the alternative? I mean, do anybody know what the side effects are of having, overwhelming pneumonia that causes you to be on a breathing machine and that might actually cause all your other organs to fail at the same time? I mean, what are the side effects of that? In any event, we do have big safety data. Serious side effects are very, very rare. And there's simply no comparison between that and the threat of COVID itself.
What about the menstruation? Forgive me that I don't have all the info on hand, but I know that there was something about menstruation and the vaccine. Do you know what I'm talking about?
I saw a headline today that the NIH is going to put money into, investigating that some, women reported disruptions.
Yeah.
Well, I have no insider sort of knowledge of that question.
Right. Yeah. I mean, I'm curious. Yeah, I'm curious about it. I guess I think that doesn't mean that I should have her on the show, Marcy Smith. I should have her on with you. You guys can talk about it.
The other thing I will say, I mean, when the vaccines were being rolled out, I do think there is, while we're just doing a roundup of vaccine-related issues, when the vaccine was rolled out, there was a lot of people posting on social media about a lot of their side effects, minor stuff for the most part. And that's real. And I think people should get the day off and the day off after, whatever they need to, if that's going to encourage vaccinations. But, there's also a lot of side effects that are, I think sometimes the side effects could be overemphasized. I mean, just to give you one number, in the Pfizer vaccine clinical trial, there was 47% of people who developed fatigue after getting the vaccine. That's high, right? You're like, wow, a lot of people. But it was 32% in the placebo arm. So, a lot of that is sort of just the experience and the stress.
Oh, that's interesting.
Yeah.
Right. Yeah. By the way, someone said I didn't do any prep, and I dropped the ball on that menstruation article. But come on, Adam is coming in here. He fucking treats people with this. Can you just make your criticism smarter? It's like with the guy who said I censor people who I disagree with, whose chat I read right away. Let's see what else. Don't force me to. If people want the vaccine, I'm okay with that. That's very generous of you. But don't force me to get vaccinated. I mean, what I will say is it's no longer this is what I'm confused about. It used to be that we thought that. Oh, and people want to know about Fauci also. What you think about Fauci? But two things. One is what is it used to be we thought that you were less infectious, right? You transmitted it less when you were vaccinated. Now that's no longer what the evidence is showing, but still the more people are vaccinated, the less it spreads, just because can you explain that?
Yeah, there's been a lot of misleading reporting on that. So basically there was a study that I think the CDC did or cited, suggesting that the one metric of the amount of virus in your nose seemed, among people who were infected, who were vaccinated and non-vaccinated, seemed similar. But there's actually been pushback against that. But here's the thing, that doesn't matter because the vaccine reduces the likelihood of being infected to begin with. So if you're not infected, you can't spread. So we know that it definitely reduces spread substantially, whatever the effect, because it prevents people from getting an infection altogether, and you can't transmit it if you're not infected.
So it does actually have, I'm sorry if this is a very basic question, but it does actually have a public health influence. Yes, my not being vaccinated does create more of a risk for others.
Oh, unquestionably.
Okay.
For others. And particularly unvaccinated people who might be around you.
Right.
It would be higher. So yes, so there is a public health justification, even if you sort of took a very strong sort of libertarian kind of approach towards people's health decisions. In this case, there is a clear potential threat to other people, and so there is a very firm good reason why a mandate for a workplace or an airplane, for instance, is totally justifiable in terms of the potential threat to people around you.
Right. And can the mask, someone asked about Israel's numbers, by the way, a lot of people bring that up. And how effective is a mask versus a vaccine in terms of planes?
I don't know. It's very hard to, no one's ever like compared these things in a study. I don't know the answer to that. What I will say is that, I don't know. I would view these as additive, not as things to sort of push against each other. But
no,
I don't mean
like a zero sum choice. I mean like right. I'm saying like they both help.
Well, yes. I think that they do different things. Look, part of the reason for masking is not simply protection of oneself, but it's protection of others, right? So that's part of the reason for it. It's you have several things, none of which are 100% perfect, and so you have to double up sometimes.
Okay,
hopefully we don't need to do the mask thing, but right now cases are soaring, so wearing masks in public places is absolutely fair.
Yeah. Someone asked about numb legs and arms. Not sure about that. What the recourse should be. You can maybe share some of the symptoms that your patients get from COVID. But that, and then I had one more thing to ask you about, which I can't remember now. Oh, I know. Okay. Really quickly. What Adam, what do you say to the doctors who disagree with you? And also, I just want to ask people for whom a very small percentage of this audience is saying that, Adam don't get trigger, Jack. Don't respond, please. Put your fingers in yours. Is saying that Adam is a shill. And I want to know for whom he is shilling. Like, who's the big Adam? What's the big thing? Who is he getting paid off by? That's what I want to know. So put your best guesses in the chat. Any final?
Oh. Wait, what was the question? So who am I being shilling for?
Numbness in arms and legs that I think someone got.
I can't speak to that story.
Look, your limbs, your choice.
I can't speak to a secondhand story of a side effect that I have no way. Look, I'm not speaking to that case whatsoever, but we have to also remember, and it's like a annoying cliche, but I'm going to say it anyway. Correlation is not causation. People get sick and things happen all the time. And sometimes it's after a vaccine and it's usually not related. How many people believe that influenza vaccines give you influenza? It's like, it's a very substantial portion of the population. It doesn't, it can't, it's not a live vaccine, right? So clearly there's a lot happening, but the fact is people get flu vaccines in flu season. And cold season. So if you get the flu vaccine and a week later you get a cold, you might think it's one caused the other. So I can't speak to that, but we have to keep that in mind. It's very common. And again, incredibly safe, incredibly studied, and life-saving. And that's the most important thing. Yeah, look, this pharmaceutical thing is bizarre to me. Again, my writing on pharmaceutical, our proposal at Physicians International Health Program to deal with the pharmaceutical industry calls for dramatic reforms, massive reductions in prices, and actually publicly financing the development and the development and research of drugs, so that we can actually take drugs completely out of the patent space and make them social goods. Like Salk said with the polio vaccine, who owns the patent? The people own the patent, to paraphrase. That's in many ways how drugs should be. They should be social goods for everyone on the planet, and not things that generate enormous revenues for powerful companies. But again, to go back to the first point I made, acknowledging that doesn't mean that the things that they're making now are not important to society. Everything that we care about fighting for, everything we care about redistributing, are things that matter, right? Are things that make people's lives better. And if they didn't, we wouldn't be having these big, huge political struggles to achieve them.
Right. Well said. Thank you so much, Adam. Thank you. Any final words? Anything else you want to make sure people know about?
No. Thanks for having me, everyone, and thanks for all the questions.
Thank you so much. And where can people find you?
I'm on Twitter. I'm AW Gaffney.
Great.
Thank
you so much. Thank you. Okay. That was great. Thanks, guys. Yeah, we're gonna bring in we are gonna bring in our next panel, which I'm very excited about. But I want us to play. Let's see. Here's another question. Unfortunately, the doctor left, but I Jack and Leslie, do you mind taking over for about a minute? I just need to bring in our next guest. So talk about whatever you want to talk about. Okay.
Well, Jack, what do you want to talk about?
You know,
Jack, the thing I want to talk about.
I just walked the dog. I don't want to talk. I'm trying to change the subject. Is what I'm trying to do.
I wanted to talk actually a little bit about John Mulaney. Have you been following the John Mulaney saga?
Only a little bit. I mean, I know that Olivia Munn is now pregnant as part of his recovery or something like that. I saw there was some kind of interview on the Seth Meyers show, and I was like, I don't think I can do that. I don't think I can do that.
The funny thing is, like, all these people are mad at John Mulaney just because he basically like got a divorce and got into a new relationship, and I couldn't figure out like why did so many people care, because he's like not a huge comic. I'm a fan of his, but like he doesn't have a sitcom. He's not like in romantic comedies or anything. Like, why did people care so much? And I did some digging, and someone helped me out and told me like it was actually because on Tumblr, like in around like 2013, 2014, there was a faction of fans who started obsessing about him and his wife at the time, just because she was like kind of cool and posted on Instagram and stuff. So they started treating them like they treat like the characters from TV shows. Like they start shipping them and saying like, this is relationship goals, this is life goals. If you actually watch the stand-up of Mulaney, like all he talks about is like how his wife is like mean and like unemotional, and when he talks about, I mean, he doesn't say anything bad about her, but he is joking. But it's like, that's not, if you actually watch his stand-up, that you wouldn't be saying like, oh, I want my marriage to be exactly like that. It didn't make any sense. And also, like, he talked about how he was a crazy person who did cocaine all the time too.
I got no problem with that relationship. I got no problem with that. You know what I mean?
He has given all that up to become just a normal guy who's married
to Olivia Munn and having a child with Olivia Munn.
Yes.
A normal Olivia Munn.
Just the average
just the average guy having a kid with Olivia Munn. Yeah, I don't know. People do get weird, very weird about the people that appear on their screens. That's for sure. The people that appear on their screens. Man, Leslie, sometimes this chat makes me upset we're not allowed to use the R word anymore. You know, that's really sometimes how I feel when you see some of these folks in the chat.
Ridiculous, but I do have the mod buttons though. They're good. They're good. I mean, I don't know why people were getting so like weird. I don't know what
I'm shocked. I'm shocked at how much anti-vaccine stuff there is, and how much this Ivermectin shit has absolutely like infected people's minds. We need a vaccine against the Ivermectin brainworm.
Yeah, very, very strange. Actually, I'm still trying to figure out like what's the point. Like, we are the hosts of Struggle Session, patreon.com/struggle session, also sesh.show. Our latest episodes are not medical advice. They are about, we did do a great episode on professional wrestling though. Jack, you weren't on this one. I didn't make you watch pro wrestling.
I gotta pick it up. I have to finally pick up pro wrestling. I'm a bearded white American. It's about time I start watching this.
Jack, it's going to be the best live thing you can go to. I'm actually happy to tell the Katie fans about this. If you have a chance to see some pro wrestling, go see it. Go see it this weekend. See if there's a local show in your area. It's becoming like it's getting really hot because this company called AEW, All Elite Wrestling, they're challenging the once, unstoppable WWE run by Vince McMahon of Trump friendship and administration fame, the McMahon family, who were a part of the Trump administration, run like this the only major wrestling promotion for about the past 20 years. But AEW, okay, we got.
Oh wow!
Everybody check out AEW. Now it is on right now. Maybe you can put it in the second window, but keep us up. But yeah.
Wow! Look at this. Something's happening over there.
Yes. Very special guest coming up. I wonder what Miss Nora thinks about pro wrestling.
I don't think we're getting your mic anymore.
Oh, you're just muted.
Okay, we're muted.
Oh, there we go.
Hi, everyone. Hi. All right, we're gonna bring in. Let me introduce this person. We got Mom, we got Bodhi, and we're gonna bring in a special guest. But everyone, this is Nora Eisenberg, and she is an author and a writer and a journalist. She's the author of, where are your books? Of not 3 novels that we know of, including fictionalized memoirs called The War at Home, and also a really great novel called When You Come Home. And that's about war, 3 generations of war. And I'm not just having her on. Jack knows that she can talk a lot about the Iraq War and stuff, but we're actually having her on to talk about something else. What are we having her on to talk about? Something that we're going to bring in another guest to talk about. But before I do that, I'm just going to shamelessly shill and say, guys, you can become supporters of the Katie Halper Show on Patreon. And not only can you, but I hope you do. Because if you do that, you help make the show happen, and I will read your names out. You get access to bonus episodes. You get all sorts of goodies. We're going to start doing watch parties. We're going to do one with Jack and Leslie. What else are we going to do? Phone calls that you get to have respond to. And I mean, I will respond to them. But guys,
you never respond to my phone calls.
I never respond to her phone calls. Hopefully I'll respond to you guys though. But we're bringing in someone, and everyone liked the stream and shared the stream. Hi, Captain Denzel. We're bringing in to talk about, my mom's here to talk about Time's Up, because Time's Up is on some Time's Up. And we got Tara Reid, who is the author of Left Out. And why are we doing this panel? Because I want everyone to know that, you know, the latest Katie Halper Show bump has set its sights on Time's Up, and we have some resignations. So Mom and Tara and Jack and Leslie, whoever really wants, but let's Tara, do you want to tell us about the latest with Time's Up? And then Mom, you want to tell us about Nora? Do you want to tell us about some of the interesting people who are there? All right. Thank you so much for coming, Tara.
Oh, hey, it's good to be here. Can you hear me okay? I'm coming through okay.
Yeah.
So yeah, the latest is that I had a list that I made, Katie, in 2019 or 2020, right around there, 2019, 2020, that transition. And I went to help, as you know, to get help from Time's Up in January of 2020. And then those months, you know what happened and how it all fell apart. And Ryan Grimm did his great investigative reporting on that. But I made a list of names that were particularly harmful to me back then. And I just got to check them all off because they all resigned.
Wow.
Oh,
except for one. And we all know who that is.
Oh, okay. So
Yeah.
let's see. So you want to tell? Yeah, I think that would be.
I'm going to guess.
And
like, you want to share the list with us?
No, I'm going to tell her. I'm going to guess who it is.
Okay.
I'm going to guess Gabrielle Sulzberger or
it was
Christy.
I'm not sure. This may not work as well as you think, Mom, because I don't think it's all Time's Up. Well, why don't you?
No, I thought you were
Time's
talking about I thought you were talking about Time's Up board.
No, the Time's Up.
Oh, you're just talking about evil people.
So
right.
Hillary Rosen, Tina, and then of course Anita Dunn, who made my life pretty much a living hell. And by the way, Nora, I'm so nervous kind of because you're this great novelist. I know your work and you're very impressive. And anyway, it's an honor. So
thank you.
Yeah, any writer would be really nervous to be on with you because you're a great writer. And so everyone needs to get your books. And I want to read
I have read them, Mom.
Call me. She needs to read my books.
Yeah.
Yes.
So listen, I just wanted to give you an STD update. SD.
Okay.
I never
STD
know
update. Okay.
STD.
That's
I call them
personal, but
STD. Yeah.
Oh, wow.
the doctor left. I don't know.
I'm talking about
SDK.
STK, whatever. Yeah.
SKD.
SDK,
SKD.
yeah.
Anita
That's
Dunn.
true.
Yeah.
Yeah.
We're with you.
Yeah. So, they all resigned. Well, they've been resigning. And now the board liquidated the board this week. And but this is what's really hilarious to me. They left a few people in charge of the transition. Some of them seem like.
Wait 1 second. Sorry. Did we set up what we're talking about? This is I want to make sure I realize I didn't set it up. We're talking about the PR firm, right?
Mm-hmm.
That represent. Jack, can you set up what it is?
This is SKDK, which is, Yeah, SKD Knickerbocker, which was founded by Anita Dunn and Hillary Rosen, a few other people, and basically, this was a consultancy firm that existed before the Obama administration, but after the Obama administration, pretty much everyone who worked, for Obama, who was a pro-corporate ghoul, kind of went over there to do advocacy for things like the Keystone Pipeline and for classifying tips as wages and things like that, and ultimately, SKDK was tasked bizarrely and in a way that no one's ever seen before to be the campaign staff for the Joe Biden campaign, as well as also the public relations arm for the Time's Up organization. And so we're talking now about there's been a sort of wave of resignations, all the way up to Anita Dunn, who has been working in the White House. A lot of this is because of the Andrew Cuomo case and how people at the top levels of Time's Up, including the CEO Tina Chen, advised Andrew Cuomo on how to weather his sex crimes scandal.
Right. Oh, I didn't know, Katie, you hadn't set it up.
No, sorry, I forgot to do that.
So that's the STG thing I was talking
That's
about.
STG.
Yes, that's the STG.
I think that's actually a good acronym for them.
Yeah.
So the new one. We're going to go with it.
So they announced that their board is defunct, and they have to
because it was revealed that they were helping Cuomo. That's what happened.
Because Letitia James' report revealed that Roberta Kaplan and Chen and who else? I don't know.
Were advising, and some from the Human Rights
Hillary
Campaign.
Rosen.
Hillary Rosen,
we're covering up for. We're advising Cuomo.
We're advising
Cuomo. And Biden.
Organization.
And Biden as well. Which is a big change from years ago when they were advising Harvey Weinstein.
Exactly.
Dunn was advising Harvey during his sex crime
scandal. It's all pro bono. I don't know. They're really very good-hearted. I don't know why being so hard on them. But this is what I discovered today when I sort of just felt I had to get the goods on some of these people. So they left 4 people in charge. Now, 2 of them seem innocuous enough. I mean, Ashley Judd, who was whose just career was really hurt by Harvey Weinstein because she refused his advances and he blackballed her. And so she's staying on just to transition. And then also staying on is Rafi Friedman Gerspin, who is a transgender rights activist. And so she seems like a sincere activist, but then they have also industry people. And I mean, it's amazing how the industry is represented here, and not just represented, but giving itself a lot of work. There have been reports that not that much of this is an aside, not that much of the money actually goes to the legal clients, but there's a lot of stuff that goes to conferences and trips and hefty salaries and honoraria. So anyway, left there, the 4 people who are supposed to be transitioning to a new board, and they have a new CEO in charge who also seems nice enough. But this one seems the benign one. Colleen DeCourcy, and she is co-president and chief creative officer of Wyden Kennedy, WNK, the ad agency for Nike, McDonald's, and Facebook. So that that's she has friends, and we'll see how that works out. But this one is amazing. Gabrielle Sulzberger, who's now divorced from Arthur Sulzberger Jr., but was not for many years, was married to him for many years.
Of the New York Times.
And she is a founding partner, I believe, of Fontis Partners, which is a private equity fund where she has served since its inception in 2007. So listen to this about Fontis Partners. They were implicated in a pay-to-play, also known as bribery, scheme with the state retirement funds in both New York and New Mexico. They hung out with Richardson.
Oh my goodness.
Yeah.
Bill Richardson.
Bill Richardson. Remember? I don't know if you remember that whole thing. Anyway, so that's one of her things. She's also on the board of MasterCard. She's on the board of Eli Lilly. And so she's on the board of Teva Pharmaceutical. That's another story because it's a Tel Aviv-based pharmaceutical company that has been playing a big part in the litigations being litigated against by the various states for their OxyContin generic, and also for price fixing generic drugs. They sort of what they do is they get paid to delay. So they've been doing this on several hundred generic.
Pay to play and pay to delay.
And pay to delay. There's a lot of paying going on. But the thing about her that's also amazing is that she was the chair of Whole Foods that saw it, the chairman of the board of Whole Foods during its acquisition by Amazon.
Wow.
So,
Jeff Bezos,
then you had Sulzberger and his wife on one side, and the company being bought by the Washington Post on Bezos on the other. I mean, it's an interesting tie-in there. So it's
so incestuous. This whole thing.
That's left in charge of transitioning to a new, honest beginning for Times Up. So it doesn't.
This needs to be reported out.
Yeah,
and you as a journalist did your research so well. You've got to. Can you post an article? Can you get one place? Because
we'll write something.
You should because I think when you lay that out, that's amazing.
Yeah.
So
I mean,
bad to worse, right, Jack?
Yeah, this is not like the thing is you're saying, this is not bode well for the Time's Up organization sort of moving forward, but this is more really par for the course for the Time's Up organization. I talked with Tara recently, we did an interview, and I was, having a tough time finding any women who the Time's Up organization has helped. There are a couple small cases where they provided some legal fees, but from what I can tell, it seems, I mean, this is me being like conspiratorial, but like the way I feel about it is that like after the Harvey Weinstein thing, they were like, oh, we can't ever let it get this bad ever again. Like this implicated a lot of people and we need a mechanism to sort of catch and kill these stories, just like sort of, has been the MO with these kind of stories from the very beginning. I feel like this is a sort of more advanced method of that, that, used the public relations of CAA and all of Hollywood as a launching pad to be like, hey, every accuser, let us vet your story and tell it and inform the men being accused of what they're being accused of.
So apropos of that, Jack, Christy Hauberger, who I thought might have been on your list because I misunderstood what you were saying and thought you were talking about the board of directors. So she joined Creative Art. She's resigned from the board and not part of the transition. But she joined Creative Artists Agency. And evidently she
I'm so shocked.
Her name is
Hauberger. Like their sister agency adjacent.
She's a person of color. And under her leadership, CAA launched CAA Amplify, an invitation only. Isn't this an important project? An invitation only annual event convening high-level multicultural artists and leaders, as well as the Amplify database, the industry's first searchable database of television writers of color.
Wow.
So they're doing, it's private.
Yeah.
It's not for, young, talented people coming up. And so a little more about these PR firms. They're so pernicious. I mean, they start wars. I was talking to you about that when I was on last. The way Hill and Knowlton was paid $13 million to start the first Gulf War in 1991, a very unpopular war, and then they fabricated all of these stories, and that was all the work of this PR firm that was largely Republican at this point and now is diversified to be inclusive.
Wow.
And so that, and then you have this other Democratic heavy PR firm called Dewey Square. I don't know if you're familiar with that.
I've heard of it. Yeah.
I had some, I was following this Maria Cardona, who is an Obama,
she's a Hillary surrogate.
Hillary surrogate, and Hillary surrogate, and she is a partner there in Dewey and Louie and
Huey, Dewey, Louie.
Yeah. And but she wrote this. Maria wrote. She's on CNN a lot. You've seen her. She does Hispanic, Latina corresponding. She's a Colombian. Yeah, comes from a wealthy Colombian family. But she wrote this article. I think it was in it was in a Nevada newspaper during the 2016 primary. Remember when just before the coronation, where they claimed that there was this violence.
Oh yeah, the Bernie Bros.
Right.
Yeah. So she wrote Bernie Sanders is no friend of the Latino, and it was a hit piece in.
Oh wow.
Yeah. And but meanwhile, in her firm at Huey Dewey, she does all these things. She serves up her people. That's what these people do, So she presents herself, and these people present themselves as whatever minority or underserved or aching community they claim to represent, and then they betray them. So she represented Countrywide during the mortgage, just before the mortgage crisis of 2008. She represented one of the big Medicare Advantage plans, which are horribly abusive and particularly aggressively sold to minority people, and on and on and on with things that are completely counter to the interests of the people she claims to be associated with and representing and caring about. So that the PR firms are unbelievable. As long as we have the revolving door, they'll be important in betraying whoever's around them, except people of real power.
Right.
What if I have a radical idea? It came to me when you just said that. You want to hear my radical idea? I think Bodhi does. Okay.
Yeah.
Hi, Bodhi. Okay. Somebody needs to hold Bodhi. She needs to be held. Yeah.
Here,
I think she needs to be held. She's wanting to be held. So my radical idea is this.
Her radical idea. She can't hear right now. Okay.
Oh, she can't. I'll wait.
Yeah. All right. Okay.
I'll wait.
Wait, hold on.
Okay.
I have to turn on the camera on and off again. Hold on, because it's blurry. Hold on.
Okay.
Well.
Okay.
Oh, it's just you. There we go. Okay.
What's your radical idea?
Okay, my radical idea is, what if we, as women that tried to get help from Time's Up and did not, what if we went to the UN for the human rights violation? I mean, because collectively they violated so many human rights, like when they were smearing Lindsey Boylan, they were trying to smear me. I know there's others that have not even come forward yet that have been afraid to, and there's staffers that are afraid to. What if we took this to the UN? I don't know.
It's an interesting idea.
I'll be there in spirit. They didn't do anything to me, but it could be like an amicus, civilian amicus brief. Citizens arrest.
Like the U.S., I know they're talking about doing that with Medicare for All. They're talking about going to the UN, so we'll see.
Oh yeah, that's interesting.
Yeah.
Yeah, because the U.S. isn't providing
those people this week. That's about it.
That was a lot of research. That was a lot to take in. And I'm glad you shared that with me, because there's a conversation that's going to be had. They were wanting to talk to some of us that signed the letter, or not really talk to all of us, but just kind of have a meeting with National Women's Law Center. Yeah. So this is interesting information.
Yeah.
Mm-hmm.
Interesting.
To go there with.
She's watching the hen house, as it were.
Who?
Gabrielle.
Oh, yeah.
Gabrielle,
yeah.
Gabrielle. Yeah. I'm sure she supports all survivors, even if they're politically inconvenient, right?
Yeah. 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 I mean, the Time's Up organization, we it is remarkable how many similarities there are between, what happened with the Cuomo accusers and what happened with you when you went to the organization, where, in both cases, the information seems to have been like passed on to the accused from people who, said that they were, helping the accuser. And, I do think it's pretty remarkable that there's been so many, resignations and everything, and it hasn't sparked a sort of new evaluating of your story. It is where it was a year ago that everyone was like, well, Time's Up says it's not true, so forget it. And now everyone from Time's Up has fucking resigned, so it seems like it'd be.
Have you been advised to resubmit your application for support?
Oh, I mean, see, this is the thing. Time's Up accepted my case. And so I never really was officially dropped. KD, their PR part rejected because they give you free PR for 3 months to 6 months or something. And I applied for that. And that's when that whole process of rejection came, because of course Anita Dunn was already making money for Joe Biden. I got a little boost in pay when I came on board with Time's Up as a client. That's when she got that $500,000 boost, according to FEC. So I think there needs to be an accounting, though. I think what would be interesting is if there's some mechanism, maybe it's the IRS, that can look at nonprofits, but they're a forensic accounting for the $25 million they were supposed to spend on survivors. Like, what happened? As far as my story goes, though, New York Times, Jodi Kantor covered a little. She never called me, but she covered a little bit of it. But AP, the rest of them are all omitting me from it and only holding up the Cuomo. But Biden's not mentioned, neither am I.
Yeah,
so,
and again, the New York Times never apologized for just, what basically was,
everything.
I think, libel. When they said that you harbored, we talked about this before, but the story about how you harbored a dark secret, deep or dark, I don't remember. It's just absolutely not true. They can't prove what they're saying. There's no doubt that to harbor a secret implies that you knowingly withheld something. Not that there was this very messy thing that, I'm not saying it was, as you yourself talked about.
I went through a divorce and I had an abusive ex-husband, and I was very open with them about the fact and shared my paperwork because I was online. Trolls were threatening me and saying, hey, we're going to, if you don't be quiet, we're going to post your divorce papers. I said, go ahead. And they said, if you're not quiet, we're going to post your bankruptcy. I said, go ahead. It's medical bankruptcy. I went bankrupt for medical bills. So whatever.
Yeah.
And I've used it as a political statement rather than be shamed by it. But what's so odd about all of this, though, is that this is coming from Democrats again. And I was trending on Twitter. I don't know if you know that, Dr. Eisenberg, but last night I was trending on Twitter and I was like, I don't know what I was but there was over 8,500 tweets about me. Yeah. And most of them were trolls, blue Democrat identifying trolls, just driving it home that I don't exist. I'm not just raising up things that weren't true.
I think that you started trending naturally because of the FX show about impeachment. They're airing a new show about the Lewinsky case, and so I think you started trending naturally because people were like, "Hey, what about Tara Reid?" And then of course all the blue MAGA freaks got on it and were just spewing vile and vitriol.
Right. Oh, and so Dr. Ford, was she also trending because of the impeachment?
I think so. I think because this was sort of in the zeitgeist because of that show airing, it made people be like, hey, this is continuing to happen pretty much openly before our eyes in slow motion.
Right. So then then you probably had assholes. Some genuine people, but then of course you get the Republicans who don't care about, who don't believe Christine Blasey Ford, but do believe Tara because of who she accused. And then I
get a lot of pushback from Republicans because I don't support them. I'm not a Republican and I don't align with them, but also because I support Dr. Ford. Because I support Dr. Ford, they get mad at me, and so they won't. So it's a troubled relationship, Katie.
Yeah.
No. So, I don't know. But anyway, it felt good to see that there's some consequences for the Time's Up, Nora. But I want to see more. I want to see, and the reason they resigned so quickly in my eyes means that they're trying to avoid legal stuff, I think.
It's interesting that Anita Dunn really never resigned, Jack. She just sort of cleaned out her office.
Yeah, just kind of disappeared.
There was an article that she left, she left the White House. This was about 10 days or a week maybe before the Cuomo stuff really hit the fan with the New York.
It was very quiet. It was really quiet. It's funny. I like follow Anita Dunn and know all this stuff closely. I had not even heard Anita Dunn was gone. She left so quietly. I think she just like, people were like, is she here? Is she not? We don't even know.
Yeah. By the way, someone said, why do all Republicans believe this woman? No, we don't. Yeah, no, I didn't mean that at all. I meant that all the hypocrites who believe women when it's convenient for them. And we have those hypocrites on both sides of the aisle, which is really beautiful because it's a bipartisan problem, post-partisan problem. They're assholes on both sides. And then there's some truth, there's some people who are actually principled. But yeah, if your believe women depends on the party of the person they're accusing, that's a good sign that maybe you don't actually believe women.
Yeah.
Absolutely. Yeah, I don't know. I think it's where do you think, Dr. Eisenberg, we're going to go from here? Like, what, in my opinion, Time's Up should just dissolve and be reimagined, and there should be survivors at the helm. But what do you think?
I think survivors are going to help decide that. I think you've had a special experience with that organization, many of you. So. Is there any kind of list developing of people who have had similar dealings with Time's Up?
Yeah, I mean, there's some on the letter, but yeah, I think there's people that have reached out. I don't know if there's one total list, but yeah, there's many, over 200 that I know of.
Yeah, I mean, I know that a lot of my kind of more mainstream feminist friends are, shocked and appalled by the behavior of these leaders. And but it's the younger people and the survivors, I think, that are going to have to decide what should become of this organization.
Yeah. And you remember Michelle Goldberg, the feminist that wrote the op-ed in New York Times and said that I ended the Me Too movement. Of course, it wasn't the person that actually assaulted me that ended it. It was me. It was my fault because I came forward and said something.
Right. And it wasn't the people who pretended who sold out the Me Too movement by by dragging their feet on the story, not believing you, smearing you.
That was my Susan Sarandon moment, like where you get blamed for ending a movement or ending the world.
Oh, right. Yeah.
Yeah. Because we all know Susan Sarandon ended everything too.
If only Susan Sarandon hadn't gone on television, we'd obviously still have Roe versus Wade at this point.
That's right.
You have to vote Democrat in every election, but even if you do vote Democrat in every election, if you didn't in 2016, then that's everything still can't be good. Unfortunately, there's only one election that ever mattered,
and no one's ever going to be able to wear a pussy hat again because of me. So
and the chickens are coming home to roost.
Yes, it's certainly you. It's not the it's not literally like the Hollywood agency that like started a catch and kill operation that like very specifically and obviously shifted the entire conversation from like a people's movement to like a top down corporate controlled entity
message. Yeah.
Who thought of that? Maybe Harvey Weinstein.
Yes,
one of his last creative acts.
Yeah.
And to his credit, Ronan Farrow and Rich McHugh, they tried to tell us, with Catch and Kill, and they brought, forward all the information about NBC and lost their jobs. And, there are journalists that really care and that really, and that, Dr. Eisenberg, because you were a journalist, there are people that really care about the truth and not politics. And they just want the truth out there, like Ryan Grimm.
Right as you said that, she growled because she feels slighted.
Bodie's having big feelings.
Hey, Bodie.
Bodie. I love it when Bodie's here.
What?
I said I love it when Bodhi's here.
Yeah, Bodhi's.
Next time I want big headphones.
Yeah, I know. Bodhi, say hi to the camera. The camera loves you,
Bodhi. Hi, Bodhi.
All right. Ah, Mom.
I'm just going to give you a kiss.
All right. Jesus. All right.
Okay. Don't yell in your mama's ear.
Sorry, yeah. All right. Mom, you want to go?
I'm going.
I mean, she needs to go. I'm not kicking her out.
Bye, everyone.
Bye, Dr. Eisenberg.
We
love you.
See you later.
Love you.
Yeah.
It was an honor. Hi, Bodhi. Yeah. So, Jack, I think do you agree that we should just dissolve and reimagine Time's Up? And then have like Luke Godbold run it, who is a survivor and a trauma expert.
Yeah, Leslie.
At this point, I honestly, I think that what you're saying about that there needs to be a forensic audit is closer to what needs to happen with Time's Up. And and I'm not, I don't get to make any of these rules, but I feel like what you've talked about before about like forming a new organization that is involved that has survivors, sort of creating it from the ground up. I feel like that would probably, because Time's Up, even if there are people involved who are well-meaning, it is just so inexorably tied to
power.
People who basically just have a financial and sort of power structure incentive to kill these stories. Like literally look at the makeup of who created the company. It's people in Hollywood and people in Washington D.C. like who are directly connected to the very people. There is no real like the financial incentive to help women is. I mean, listen, it's like HR, actually. We know that HR, while they say that this is supposed to be for people to come to if they have a problem or something like that, the real purpose of HR is to insulate the company, and to make sure that the company doesn't, is not open to liability and everything like that. And so it actually is like, Time's Up is just HR for like the entire United States, like all the powerful people in the United States.
For the elites.
This is an organization that was there to mitigate, the damage that could be done to the powerful, not out there to help the people who are not powerful.
Yeah, I think it's inherently set up that way.
Yeah.
Yeah. I mean, they should be funding some kind of, if they want to use their power and money, then they can like donate to something,
They got 25 million.
Right. So they should empower. I mean, because the whole thing of it is like the idea of it is like powerful people who like rub shoulders with powerful people trying to call them in. Or trying to support women who aren't, right? Like when they took women with them to the Oscars.
Everybody wore the black dress or something.
Was black dress and then
the black dress, yes.
Yeah.
Just it's all virtue signaling. It's meaningless. Yeah.
I mean, look, you're watching people who every single one of them knew about Harvey Weinstein for like a decade at the very least. You know what I mean? So it's like, these things were open secrets, and really Hollywood did have to sort of face a reckoning. There was something happening that they needed to face, and so the way I feel like they and DC decided to face it was like harm mitigation and trying to make sure that nothing like Weinstein ever happens again. Not in the sense of no one should ever be abused again, but we can't be caught with our pants down like that with New York Times running stories we don't know about yet. Like that's really like what I feel like ended up happening.
I had a question for you, Kate. This is kind of going back in time, but like, and for you, Leslie, like, do you all remember when I was, when I gave my interview for Katie Halper, it was right after the Ryan Grimm article posted. Did you then know how corrupt Time's Up was, or was there just sort of an inkling? Because it was all really a shock to me. I wasn't,
sadly, we knew from the beginning, like some actually on Struggle said some of our earliest episodes were about like CAA and their involvement with Time Up, and we saw like, wait a minute, these are the people who were bringing actresses to Harvey Weinstein,
right?
And they're starting an organization to handle this. Like, no, like all this, and it's not like you don't need inside information to know this. This should have been reported went as loudly as like all the promotion for Time's Up, because all like the New York Times and all these outlets like promoted Time's Up as this really wonderful thing without really like hard questioning like there should be an asterisk every time they mention it. It's like asterisk. The people, the CAA agency involved in Time's Up was directly implicated in X, Y, and Z, offense. Like, but that wasn't how it was done. It was presented like Time's Up wasn't even presented as coming from like an agency. Right. It was just like a wonderful organization coming
Shonda
out,
Rhimes and Alyssa Milano have started a mutual aid organization.
Yeah.
It's almost how it was put forward.
Shonda Rhimes. Oh, sorry.
Go ahead. No, you go ahead. Shonda Rhimes.
Yeah. Well, she was like, it's exhausting. I talked about this on Rising, actually, and when I went on, Jack, they actually played a clip of you on here because you kind of succinctly explained what the fuck Time's Up did because the media was totally silent on it. But Shonda Rhimes was like, the idea that she said something about it being exhausting, the idea that Time's Up was doing anything problematic, which is just like, how high up your own ass are you?
This is, and you know what's funny about that is I actually do believe that that's what Shonda Rhimes thinks. So Shonda Rhimes is like, obviously Time's Up. Obviously, Time's Up is a good organization because I'm a good person, which is kind of about like the core of liberal thought. Is liberals are like, I can't support something bad because I'm a good person. I would never support something bad, and like taking personal offense to the idea that they would ever support, something bad. I do kind of even believe that like Shonda Rhimes has the best intent.
Believe Shonda.
I believe show running women. I believe showrunner women like Shonda. I believe that Shonda has the best intentions, but also signs on to a whole lot of charity shit that like she probably doesn't know anything about and just gets asked to give statements about it. Like Shonda sticking her neck out for Tina Chen just makes me think like, damn, you really don't know what the fuck is going on at Time's
Up. Somebody get the content memo. Well, I have one more thing that I wanted to just look at quickly, and then we can wrap. Is that cool? Just a short little video?
Mm-hmm. Yeah.
Okay. Oh, hi, Mom. I'm still on. I'm on screen. Yeah. All right. By the way, again, patreon.com/The Katie Halper Show, patreon.com/The Katie Halper Show, because that would be great. I'd really appreciate it. Because this is, people... Well, I'm not going to say anything, but it would be great if we could get just one person, even $1, and make me feel really happy. Just one person. Katie's mom dropping Ronin-sized bombs.
Yeah.
1 second. Let me.
I love that.
Nick,
that's awesome.
Nick, do you have Nick? Could you play that clip that I sent you from the Hill? That remember I sent you the wrong thing at first. If not, I can get it. But
Governor Abbott signed a sweeping overhaul of the state's election procedures after months of delay caused by Democrats who sought to block the bill.
Hold on 1 second. I'm just gonna, one of my final acts tonight is gonna be, you know what? I'm blocking someone who said I censored and belittled him. Well, I didn't up until like your 15th fucking time of complaining about that. So sorry. You're so self-pitying. You're so fucking annoying. I wish I had censored you, and I clearly didn't, which is why I'm reading your shit the whole night. You're a troll. Get a fucking life. Seriously, you're so annoying. And I'm sorry. Just like man up and shut the fuck up and go like call a friend who cares about this shit. I'm so tired of your self-pitying stuff. So you're banned. Yeah, I ban people. I don't censor them. But when they get really annoying, I do. Thank you, IB, for this. Thank you so much. Thank you for this. All right, I feel better about humanity already. No one can ever accuse me of like sucking up or doing anything for fucking clicks, by the way. Obviously. But let's play this clip and let me just control it, Nick. Can I play it? Because how do I do that? All right, let me see.
Texas Governor Abbott signed a sweeping overhaul of the state's election procedures after months of delay caused by Democrats who sought to.
Okay, you guys know this story, right? All right, so there's like terrible stuff on voting rights, but this is like, we're going to get a little meta. We're going to talk about a panel. Okay, hold on, let me see.
Republicans, conservatives want these restrictions, identification for voting, and then Democrats or some Democrats, liberals, I want to require identification to like go anywhere in the pandemic. It seems like
okay. I don't actually. So what he's doing there is he's making I would say a very false analogy between requiring identification. Like he's making a really bad analogy between thanks, Misty. Between what's the word? Requiring ID to show that you've been vaccinated to get on a flight, and requiring ID to vote. And I kind of think those are different things. So he's like comparing the voting disenfranchisement in Texas with vaccine stuff, and then they shift into abortion news. So I wanted to.
Wow.
Like there's some hypocrisies to settle there. Switching gears just a little bit, talking about a different Texas issue. The governor of Texas was asked by reporters why women who are victims of rape or incest will be forced to carry to term. And he said here that, well, we're going to eliminate all rapists from the street.
Governor, regarding the heartbeat bill, why force a rape or incest victim to carry a pregnancy to term?
It doesn't require that at all, because obviously it provides at least 6 weeks for a person to be able to get an abortion. And so for one, it doesn't provide that. That said, however, let's make something very clear. Rape is a crime, and Texas will work tirelessly to make sure that we eliminate all rapists from the streets of Texas by aggressively going out and arresting them and prosecuting them and getting them off the streets.
Is that a satisfying answer, do you think?
Who do you want to go first?
Our conservative guest.
Look, it's a piece of the answer. He is right. Rape is a crime, and we need to be clear about this legislation. If a woman is raped, she knows she was raped, and I do hope that she would be seeking medical attention and counseling after the fact. She still has every opportunity to obtain the morning after pill. She has the opportunity to get an abortion up to 6 weeks. I hate to be blunt, but if a woman is raped, she knows she was raped. So she does have the opportunity to minimize the risk if that's happening. More broadly speaking, I think this is kind of a straw man's argument and not a very effective one regarding the legislation in Texas, which I understand Americans have very different and passionate views on the issue of abortion. But rape accounts for such a small percentage of abortions in Texas and nationwide. And again, women who are raped still do have weeks to do what they need to take care of themselves and ensure that they don't need to carry that pregnancy to term. Heaven forbid that ever happens.
Well, barely have weeks, because the way that Texas does its counting is they go to last menstrual cycle. So for practically half of the period where you're eligible to get a legal abortion in Texas, you're actually not even pregnant. But Max, I'm curious, if Texas actually does have this capacity to eliminate rape, why have they waited so long?
Because this is a bad faith talking point that is meant to deflect from the question that was asked, right? As was the kind of, applause that quickly followed it. Like, I'm also pissed off at the journalist for not immediately following up with the question that should have been asked, which is, which is the question that you just asked, Ryan. I mean, the anti-sexual violence group RAIN has said that 31% of rapes nationally are reported, just 31%. 5% of those actually lead to an arrest. Half of that 5% actually lead to a conviction. So the notion that you're going to kind of just eliminate rape in Texas is bonkers to me, and it drives me nuts that people like me on the left are the ones who are constantly told that we are the wide-eyed idealists for wanting to provide people health care, right, for wanting to live in a less unequal, unjust society. And yet the governor of Texas can come out and respond to a question that he has an obligation to answer for his constituents and deflect by saying, oh, well, we're going to solve this problem by getting rid of rape entirely. No one believes that. If you do believe that, I don't know what planet you're actually living on. And just to really underscore the point that you made, Ryan, because this is something a lot of folks have asked me since our last segment last week. Yes, I mean, most people, when folks who are watching hear the line that most people don't know that they're pregnant by this 6-week cutoff, it's because of what you said, because it starts from the last period. So then you got about 4 weeks. You miss that period if everything goes fine, right? If there are no irregularities, then you basically have 2 weeks to try to get that abortion, right? So this is effectively, a ban for the vast amount of people who may want to get an abortion or who may need an abortion. So, I mean, like, let's just please stop pretending like this bill is anything other than what it is.
Well, I do want to just clarify real quickly that it isn't a 6-week ban. It's a heartbeat ban, isn't it? Or is it actually?
Right,
do they say 6 weeks or do they say heartbeat?
But it's not actually a heartbeat. It's this like electromagnetic thing that flickers between a couple of different cells that can only be picked up by a.
That's not a heartbeat. I can tell you, as someone who's 7 months pregnant and has been to many of these ultrasounds, that is a heartbeat.
Fuck you. You don't, who are you?
Right.
Sorry, pregnant lady, 7 months, big fucking deal. You're going to play like the I'm pregnant card.
And
so
how many,
and
how many, and Ryan has like 5 or 6 kids, doesn't he? He has a lot.
4. I mean, 4. I don't know if I feel weird talking about people's kids, but yeah.
No, but I mean, I'm saying that like he's experienced with his partner, I mean,
he is a father. That's he's a father. So that's,
right.
I mean, he's not,
I mean, the sonogram.
like, yeah, I mean, I just think that's so gross. Like,
it's so gross.
I don't give a shit if you're 7 months pregnant. Sorry. Like, who the hell are you to talk about what the definition of a heartbeat is? Because you feel, first of all, you're 7 months pregnant. Like, it doesn't even work. Say you're 7 weeks pregnant, and then maybe you'll have a talking point. But like, the whole point is that one of the many points is that like, there's a big difference between 6 weeks and 7 months pregnant.
Very much so. And like, and immediately when I heard that Texas governor, I thought he just he didn't get it at all. And the eliminate rape. Let's look at that. Eliminate rape in Texas.
I know. What were they doing before?
I guess
they're not
even
I don't know. Bounties for rapists. They're only offering bounties for abortion providers and people who need an abortion. So
you're right.
I number one, I'm like, I think it's a ridiculous thing on its face. Ultimately,
that's actually good. They should be offering bounties on aiding and abetting rape.
Yeah. I mean, also, here's the issue really with what he says, and it's disgusting on its face, but, saying that they're going to get rapists off the street, unless you're saying that you're going to somehow like be able to predict when someone is raped, like someone has to have rape to be a rapist. You know what I mean? Like, even if you are talking about we're going to lock up all the rapists, like that's still like rape occurring. You know what I mean? And
all they have to do is kind of raid one of the Democratic National Conventions or the Republican National Conventions. Just go for the elite. Maybe they can eliminate rape. I don't know.
Yeah.
I mean, look, a lot of what I feel about the Texas law is that obviously it's disgusting and it's horrendous. And, this is and we've seen a lot of finger pointing basically all the way back to the year 2000 from liberals. And the only thing that I would say about it, is that the Republicans are going to push their advantage whenever they possibly can. And, the Democrats have a history of not codifying things into law just because it's kind of difficult. Like we have had majorities like a number of times since Roe versus Wade, was passed, and they haven't like done the work to get it passed as anything other than just sort of a Supreme Court precedent, So while of course I'm mad at the Republicans and I think it's a disgusting law and obviously the Republicans are fucked up, like what you have to look at is like how it was allowed to happen. You know what I mean? And we've left Roe versus Wade just on this weird precipice and said like, let's not deal with it because it's settled law or whatever. That clearly isn't working and is not going to work into the future.
But it's great fundraising.
So if there's federal legislation, right, like similar to the Violence Against Women Act, where you can, for reproductive rights, you can do federal legislation and do something in that mode. The Democrats have the House, the Senate, and the White House.
Yes, that's the other thing is like they keep pointing to, it's like, well, the Supreme Court, our hands are tied. It's like there are, the idea is that there are supposed to be like co-equal branches of government, and we actually and the Democrats control all the other ones. You know what I mean? And I don't know. I tend to agree with Katie. I'm kind of cynical about this. I think that for the most part, elected Democrats see this as a fundraising issue. They're not people who actually sort of have to deal with the reality of what it means to get an abortion or are in a situation, you know, where that's something that needs to happen to them or their family. So yeah, that's ultimately kind of how I feel, is that they use it for fundraising and have a sort of general belief that they want it to succeed, but would very happily just say you need to vote, use it as an election issue for the foreseeable future.
Yeah. Yep, I agree.
Yeah.
So what do you think, Leslie?
Well, I think he actually said something so kooky and ridiculous that because he wanted us to talk about that and make Minority Report jokes instead of actually focusing on the issue. Like, he obviously doesn't believe that, right? But one point I did want to make is, you know, since we're talking about the Minority Report thing, even if you somehow could prevent all rape, our current carceral system is not like the mechanism to do it. Like, the cops couldn't do it even if we gave them all the money in the world and all the protection, all the rights in the world. Like, I just want to just mention that, like, that's sort of propaganda idea, like, like our current system even could possibly, if we had Tom Cruise technology, solve that. If you actually watch the Minority Report movie, it's different than the book, but in the movie they find out that the Minority Report sometimes accidentally puts innocent people in jail, so they end the entire system and go back to our current system, which of course never puts innocent people in jail.
Yeah, thank God for that.
I mean, where the governor of Texas, Governor Greg Abbott, is someone who's saying we need to get out there and proactively lock up all the rapists, but he's also probably someone who believes that everyone who travels here from Mexico as an immigrant is a rapist. You know what I mean? Like, that's like really what, you know, the core of what he's saying is like, and that's why we need to pull over illegal aliens in their cars and arrest them indiscriminately.
Well, remember Maricopa County, the undisgraced, the pardoned Arpaio, he would spend all these resources that were supposed to go into, you know, they had a major rape backlog because they were, of course, spending resources pursuing people who are undocumented, putting all of the budget into that, and, you know, letting go a lot of sex offenders.
And the rape kits weren't done.
Yeah, rape kits. Yeah, right. So they can go hand in hand really beautifully. I also wanted to. This is not to end on a sad note, but I'm really sad about Michael K. Williams. That was such a fucking loss, and he was amazing. We interviewed him on Useful Idiots. I'll put a link to it. Back when we were still at Rolling Stone, and he was so nice. Like, he was just so incredibly nice. This is, of course, people know we're talking about the actor who played Omar on The Wire, and was also on Lovecraft and in many other Boardwalk Empire. But he was so incredibly nice, and he did a lot. I mean, it's a side that I don't think a lot of people looked at, but he was very active in basically give like anti-carceral stuff. And he talked about his addiction also, and it's so
I didn't know that. Okay.
Yeah, he struggled with addiction, and it just fucking sucks.
He was technically, as an actor, he was so superb. I mean, and he really had a presence. Like, I know they were showing some of the scenes, his iconic scenes, and iconic lines, but he really did just, even in a smaller role, he just fills the room. And he was quite the actor, it's quite a loss. It's sad.
He was so humble too. And he turned into this really, like, just this huge gay icon. It was incredible. And he had no idea until it happened, obviously. But like, that character of Omar was amazing.
Great actor, and it's a horrible loss. Very sad. Very, very sad.
Yeah. So I think that people will be carrying on his work.
Yeah.
But,
well, as far as like back to the pro-choice thing, I'm still kind of stunned that we're in this place right now, in this moment in 2021, where my daughter is facing the loss of her reproductive rights. Or, I mean, it's really a reminder that you just can't take it for granted, that you have to stay active and vigilant, and you can't count on, like what you said, Katie, that Democrats are using it for fundraising, like they're using Me Too as a shield, right? To shield their behavior. I mean, we have to be more aware of our freedoms and, and our rights. Also,
I would tack onto that to say that, like, this is why it's more important than ever to, like, help people in your community. You know what I mean? And to make sure that people, like, around you are cared for and everything like that, because we really can't count on federal assistance. We can't count on, a kind and just country. So, especially if you're in Texas, if you're anywhere where these laws are rolling out, like, it's our duty to kind of care for each other, because no one else is going to. Good Lord.
And there's one voice that wasn't heard tonight, Katie. And that was Charm's voice.
Oh, yeah, you're right.
Yes, Charm's voice. Do you have his picture?
Let me see. Can you send
I sent it to you. Yeah.
1 second.
It's in the phone. Yeah. So Charm is my horse. And he has strong feelings about Ivermectin because it's caused the worming medicine prices to go sky high.
Oh, no.
And he was going to come in as a guest host while the doctor was talking, because he had some.
Wow.
Obviously, right? I have I just happen to have worming medicine next to me, but no coincidence. But
hey, you don't have any of those
it's for my horse,
do you?
It's for my horse. I swear. Anyway. I think
good to have on hand just in case. In case.
I know, right? Like as we're talking, I just pull out the worming medicine case. Jack's like, we have to have a conversation before we have Tara Reid back on. I'm sure you've had those conversations anyway, but whatever.
No. You have a horse. You have a horse. Yeah. There are people who it's reasonable to have ivermectin, and horse owners, equestrians are the ones.
There you go.
We're allowed.
Yes. Wow.
There we go. There's the evidence. So Charm wanted to make a statement. He just wanted to say, humans, stop taking my meds.
Driving up
perfectly reasonable request.
Product placement. Love it.
Okay. All right. Well, thanks.
Hazy Wave is right. That is getting screenshotted and disingenuously shared on Twitter. You holding up the ivermectin? Get ready for a shitstorm.
Oh my God, that's hilarious.
That'll probably make my Patreon donations go up.
Unless they watch the video.
I'm telling you, I love to feed the trolls, whatever. So.
Yeah, true. Yeah.
All right. Well, I love you guys.
Right. Yeah, this was great.
Talking with you
so much. Yeah.
Thank
you, everyone.
We almost solved all world problems.
I know.
Yeah.
We came so close.
It's always next show. Always next show.
Yeah.
Next show. Guys,
take care. Good night.
Bye, everyone. Thanks, everyone. Bye.
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 See ya.
Alrighty. All right, so guys, thanks for coming to the show. Make sure that you it's a shadow. What's the deal? Okay, make sure that you become I don't answer Patreon. Okay, Valerie. Oh my God. Okay, Valerie, tell me what you couldn't access, because I will give you access even if you don't pay. Whoops, that's not who I meant to highlight. I saw your comment, Valerie. I don't answer Patreon. So yeah, tell me what it was that you couldn't access. Let's talk through it. Oh wow, your thing says trust no one, so I'm clearly going to be giving you trust issues if I didn't respond to you on Patreon. But let me know. What was the thing that I didn't respond to? I'm not being sarcastic or anything. Hold on 1 second. All right. Oh yeah, Tara does talk, by the way, to Rose McGowan. Someone asked that. I think they've talked. Valerie, tell me what it was. I will write you back now. Anything? I don't answer Patreon. I do. I try to. I missed your message. I can't believe I highlighted this message. I'm doing such bad advertising for myself. Please remember to hit the like button, share and subscribe. Yes, not me. Yes, yeah. All right, Valerie, give me an email where I can reach you at, I guess. We don't like Fauci. Get a help. Okay. Buffering. I didn't say you were a troll. Why do you think I said you're a troll? I'm not saying you're a troll at all. I just feel bad because your thing says trust no one. Hi, Brad Bloom. Yeah, Brad is here. All right. Well, hold on a second. Hold on. I'm yelling at my mom because she's playing. This is a lot. I feel very much like the king of comedy, Robert De Niro character. All right. Well, this was an interesting show. Yeah. Okay, I know what to do if I ever want to. All right. Not one Patreon, not one, just someone. Can someone in the audience just become like, you can pay for 1 month, pay $1. You don't have to. It's just, if they say they're not a troll, they're a troll. You don't have to do that. I'm not feeding the trolls. Oh my God. Okay, Katie, please tell me your prediction of Tom Brady and the Tampa Bay Pirates will beat the Dallas Cowgirls tomorrow night in the NFL opener so I can call in my bet. Yeah, I think so. I would say yes. It's really fucking hot where I am right now. All right. I paid $2 on a super chat and it wasn't answered so much. What was your super chat? What does that mean, answered so much? I don't even know what that means. I would, but I'm already a Patreon supporter. Thank you, Tyler. Cash in the bank. I don't know. Yeah, I don't like Fauci, by the way. Football is starting tomorrow. Okay. All right. Well, maybe I won't do the show anymore. That was a kind of depressing thing. Yeah. I guess I should keep the show going. Whatever. I'm definitely going to cut off the ending of this. Oh, thank you, Brett B, for upgrading your Patreon today. So thank you. Let me just celebrate this one person. Okay. Thank you, Brett, so much. Brett updated his Patreon. I want to. Oh, it's Brett who has Honey the dog. Oh my God. Thank you so much, Brett. You see, there are good people in this world. And those good people include Brett and Honey. So yeah, Brett is the that's okay if you can't. I understand if you can't afford it. I totally get it. Thank you so much, Frodo. I'll be doing more self-care shows soon. In fact, next week I'll be doing one. Isn't that cool? Yeah, we can do a show on Fauci. Please. All right. Carne Verde, are you a Patreon supporter? Just asking. Hold on, I'm shutting this off. Oops, I didn't mean to do that. Hold on, I have to switch my camera so it stops being fuzzy. Okay. The self-care are the best. Yeah, I agree. They're pretty good. We're going to have more of those self-cares. Oh, and thank you, Phantom Fanta. And Independent Left, are you in the chat tonight? I don't know if they speak from time to time, Tara, and I'm not exposing anything public. I just know that they've spoken. Or I don't know if they've spoken. I know that Rose, I'll just say this, Rose has tweeted in support of Tara. All right, guys. Well, this was great. And thank you so much for coming. Oh, thank you for joining my Patreon. Oh my God, you guys, I got 2. Okay, I love you. Now the world is a place I can believe in again. Wow, I want to thank you guys. So I'm going to thank, oh my gosh. All right, thank you so much, Gerald. Gerald, you are a herald when it comes to life. You are the Herald News of Gerald News. Meet you in Gerald Square. Okay, then Eduardo Roca. You are my rock, basically. And Don Valentine, do I need to tell you what you are to me? You're my Valentine, Don Valentine. So guys, I feel complete. Yeah. Oh, what is the general strike? You missed Gaffney, yeah. But yay, dopamine. This is such an emotional roller coaster. Have I read Emma Goldman? I have, but okay, you know what? Mom, what do you... All right, I really am. Like, have you guys seen the movie King of Comedy? It's good. I would love to have Tara and Rose on together. Show saved. Yes, indeed. Free Assange. Yes, indeed. Emma Goldman rules. Let's do a book club. Who was I going to have on to do a book club? And we're going to read their books. What do you think? A monthly book club meeting? Is that good? I think so, right? What do you think? Exchanging money for words. It is a funny concept, lol. I mean, that's what writers do. Well, guys, this was great. Thank you, Nick. Thank you, Tyler. Thank you, Brad. Thank you, Independent Left. Thank you, Phantomus Fanta. Thank you, Varushka. Yes. Thank you, everyone who's helped. Thank you, everyone who has not helped, because you help in ways you don't even know. The King of Comedy is terrific, right? It's such a great book. Yeah, I'm gonna also offer. We had like an interesting. Well, I'm not gonna say anything, but that's it. Why is Mom's getting mad? Oh, because was she getting mad? She's not. Oh, because I heard her. I was telling her to not play something. Thank you, Katie, for the show once again. Thank you. Please remember to hit the like button, share. Yeah, guys, come on. It's nothing. It's really nothing. It's nothing. That's effortless. And it's free. The best things in life are free. All right, guys. This has been a great show. I want to thank everyone for coming. Thank you for putting up with the big rolled carpet behind me. Thank you, Brad. Thank you, Nick. Thank you, Tyler. Thank you, Varushka. Thank you, Phantomus. Thank you, Independent Left. Thank you, Brett. Thank you, Honey. Oh, man. Next time, I promise, next time I stream, I'm going to do a thing where I play all the dogs that I didn't realize had been who I didn't show. And then love Katie and also Rosa Luxemburg. That is my middle name, Rose. Yeah, please do that. And all right, I will see you guys probably Sunday, I think. I did tonight instead of tomorrow. So this was our weekly stream. Let me know any good media stories I should talk about on tomorrow's Rising, which they release later. Okay. Bye, everyone.